Chief Anderson, the invocation, please.
If you'd bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come before you today with grateful hearts for the opportunity that you give us to serve this community. We ask your presence in this meeting and your guidance in every decision that is made here tonight. Grant us, O Lord, the wisdom to discern what is right, the courage to stand for what is just, and the compassion to serve those that you've entrusted to us. Help us work together in unity with respect for the greater good of our city and its people. May every word spoken and every action taken tonight reflect integrity and fairness and a true desire to build a stronger community. We ask your blessing upon our leaders, our citizens, and our city. Please keep us safe, keep us humble, and lead us in peace. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Well, we were supposed to present Mike Woodard an honorary award for his retirement, but he's not here. So he retired. I can't remember the exact month. Okay, and then next item is question and comments from any Warr Acres residents that there was a policy, you could fill out an open forum form and request to bring something to the attention of the city if there was something that you wanted. The last meeting, someone wanted speed humps, but I guess they didn't come back. So from now on, we're gonna have that, and there'll be a time limit, and it'll be not to complain, but to see if there's the ideas that people have to make the city better.
I have a question on that.
Mm-hmm.
So when we took the call to the public off of our agenda, we all voted on that.
Oh, he's.
So is that something that we need to revote for that to happen?
I was told it was a policy.
No, I have the minutes where we voted on it.
Oh, okay, didn't know that.
So
When was
is that something we need to add to the agenda for next month and vote on it, or is that?
What month was that?
When was
Huh?
that?
When was that?
It would have been the minutes for May of 2022.
Oh, before I got here, so.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
If the council voted on it, then the council has to,
Oh.
essentially, it's it's still a policy choice. It's just, it was a policy choice of the council, which would mean the council would have to change its mind.
Okay.
Okay, well,
But frankly, even I had forgotten that the council had voted on that, so we will get that on the agenda for the council to decide whether
Judy
or not
is
to
a
add it.
researcher. Okay, well, that's fine. Okay, so we're gonna vote on approving the consent docket from May 2025. Anybody have any items they want to pull to talk about?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent docket A through F.
I'll second it.
Morris?
Yay.
Musselwhite? Yes. Worley?
Yay.
Yes.
Myers?
Yes?
Schmidt?
Yay.
Evans?
Yes.
Douglas?
Yes.
Motion passed.
All righty. Receive reports from the staff, starting out with Chief Anderson.
Yes, I'll let the report stand. I'll answer any questions that you may have in reference to it. Want to have any questions?
Just that the deer was in my backyard.
It's,
That was scary.
I will state, it's amazing to me how many deer actually live in the community of Warr Acres.
Wow.
Yeah, that was funny.
So I did notice on the animal control report that we're getting more people coming and chipping their pets. I saw an influx of that on this
Yes.
report, so that's great.
Yes, it really is. And the more that can happen, the better it is, as you're fully aware of.
Oh,
I have a question. So if they do the chipping and they fail to register online, would the company that sold the microchip be able to contact you and you can find who's the owner? Because we had such a problem before.
No, they have to register it when it's done. I don't know the exact process of it, but they pay us for it, and we contract it out to get it chipped when they do all their shots and everything else.
With whom? With the Humane Society?
Yes, ma'am.
So the company, the microchip company will call the Humane Society. The Humane Society will basically probably have the name and the information of the original owner of the pet. Or do they have
don't think it
your
goes to the
information
Humane
as a city
Society.
of 4 acres?
So,
Know that we have the equipment to do it, and we can do it, but we've been able to loop it into the cost that they charge us for it.
As far as the actual information, it's whoever the chip producer is, and that company will hold the information. And then we would call.
right, but I know what you're saying. So when you go to adopt a pet and you take it to get it chipped, when they put the chip in the pet, then a screen pops up and they fill in the information with the people still there. Because I went to the Humane Society and went through
That is
it.
the Humane Society, but there
Right.
is people, basically, they have a pet, they put a microchip, and they take it to any doctor, any vet, and they don't register it. So usually, if it is the Humane Society, back in the days, it says, there is a dog on 87 and MacArthur, Elvis. Everybody knows Elvis, because he's a runner. And Elvis, his microchip is not registered, but it is from the Humane Society, and this is how I was able to track his owner and find out where she was living, but she never really registered it. But they have the serial number of the microchip, and they have it in record there who they sold it to. So that is why the animal control, they should basically provide the name of the owner and their address and their phone number to the Humane Society. That would make it easier for anyone to locate the owner of that dog.
Well, that information is provided when we send them down to the Humane Society to process it, because we have to make an appointment for them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I thought, well, we only chip the adopted animals, right?
Well, no, if people have their own pets and they want to bring them up, we'll chip them.
We will?
That way when they get out,
Okay,
all animal control has to do is scan it, it pulls up the address, they take them to the house.
We
Okay.
adopted an ordinance recently, I believe Councilwoman Myers championed, to add that as a service that we would offer.
okay.
Right. Now, if you're bringing a pet, then we do have the equipment and the chips to do that. So if they can contact us, then, yeah, we would have that information.
Thank you.
But that's not one that we've adopted out, because that's part of our fees that we pay.
There was also, I was contacted by Jason about the puppies. Are we doing anything about those for,
Yeah, they're going to run the half-price adoption for the puppies. They were waiting, I think, one more week for the last final round of shots.
okay,
So we will
There's-
still have any puppies that will do half-price adoption on, and kind of run that as an event to try to find them a good home.
Do you guys want to tell everybody what that was about?
he can. I don't really.
We've got a litter of puppies that eat a lot of food.
No, but I mean, how we even got them, like, yeah.
So their mom was court-ordered to be held as part of the vicious case. She was not vicious. It was just kind of all 3 or 4 dogs in residence were held. While we had her, she had 10 puppies.
Oh, my gosh.
We've adopted out 2. We're at our time with the other 8. So I talked to Matt and Mayor, because we were, like, as much as they were costing us to feed, we was find a way to get a home while they're still small and cute and cuddly and get to where they want to be. And they are part pit, part boxer. They are really cute dogs. Big dogs. My wife wants all of them, I told her.
And they are very hungry puppies that what we would lose on the half adoption fee,
We'll make up
Jason will save in his trips to go pick up more puppy food repeatedly.
If you need food for them, let me know, I'll get you some.
They're hungry.
Me too.
I think Jason might have called me as he was going to pick up the food.
Okay, and,
In fact, when he gave me the invoice, I'm going, all of this was for animal control?
It's for puppies.
Puppies.
all righty. Chief Coy,
I just have a couple things to share. You may see in the packet, I included a more extensive report from Pafford. After a lot of us Metro chiefs that are in the Pafford system got together, we asked them to provide a little more information so we could see a breakdown of how often we are loaning our truck to Bethany, how often we get a truck from Bethany to Warr Acres, even from Del City, and just kind of see how the system works. So that's why there are some more graphs and more information than is normally included. I mentioned in the cover letter that we intend to use the $50,000 budget in the CIP. I haven't come to you to ask for that yet because I'm still trying to get some pricing. The cheapest I've seen is to outfit a brush bumper. It's about $72,000. And so I'm seeing if we can piece it together and use some of this stuff from the old truck as to not have to ask you for more. So that's why I haven't come to ask. But we are looking at how we can utilize that money. And once the brush pumper is up and running, because we got the cabin chassis free from the county, but once we get it operational, then we want to give the other unit to Public Works. And the other thing is, I'm not going to name them individually. A lot of times our guys don't want recognition, but we had one of our corporals on blue shift save a life using a tourniquet. It was a post-surgical wound that was excessively bleeding, and his quick response, quick reaction saved that individual's life. The crew on red shift saved a lady's life that was in cardiac arrest the other day. And then one of our firefighters, he's a captain, he was named Firefighter of the Year with the American Legion. And it's a pretty competitive entry
Wow.
with a lot of consideration. So some good news for the month.
Great.
Congratulations.
Yay. Okay, city clerk? Nothing? City attorney?
This is fun. Some of you may have noticed that we have a couple of pop-up vendors that are selling Thunder gear as part of the NBA Finals. Thank goodness we might have a chance to be done with that on Thursday if they can pull their stuff together. It led to an interesting discovery because there were some more former members from the council who were upset to see those because they felt like they were illegal, and they certainly were for about a 2-year period. I won't go through the long history, but we had an ordinance in our zoning code that said if you're going to use property for sales, it obviously has to be zoned commercial, but that if you're going to be selling out of what is called a seasonal building, which is essentially a portable structure that would include a tent, a portable building, or a trailer, they had to go through a special permit process. And all was fine and good up till 2015. The only people that were using them were a couple families that had snow cone stands that would set up once per year. And then in 2015, we adopted a massive boondoggle of a food truck ordinance that created problems for those two families because it wasn't the seasonal building, it was the fact that they were selling food out of it. And so essentially that shut down the snow cone stands, and it led to a 2-year boondoggle on what to do about seasonal buildings in the zoning code, which culminated, and I went back to look, there's nobody on the council today when this boondoggle started in 2015, and the only person that's here when it ended in 2017 is Mike Schmidt.
But there's staff people that were here.
Oh yeah, we all remember the wonderful meetings that we had on seasonal buildings. So here's the fun. October 2017, the council voted to remove seasonal buildings altogether and to prohibit them. And so from that point forward, they were out of the code, not allowed. Except it never quite made its way into the online codifiers version of the code. So when we adopted the full codification in 2019, which we're required to do every 10 years, and which takes the place of all the individual ordinances that were adopted before it, it got put back in the code. And nobody caught it until Vicky started getting some complaints from some former members of this body about the fact that we had these tents out there and they didn't have seasonal building permits because they're not allowed anymore, that we found actually they are allowed again. It wasn't an intentional decision by the council to put it back in. It was simply an error on the online codifier not removing the language before we pulled the full code out to file our once every 10-year codification. But since it was in the full codification, that takes the place of what happened in 2017. So I tell you all that not to start a discussion or debate about what we do going forward, but to inform you that we found this issue, that the council intentionally took something out of the code that got unintentionally put back in the code. We don't have to do anything other than I need to let you know that that happened and that that language is back in the code. If you're curious about the history, and it is a long history, I'll be happy to share it with you. Happy to send you the multiple versions of the ordinance that we went over, and Mike can tell you,
That Mike.
the meeting that we had in 2017, they had 3 ordinances before them to pick from, and picked one out of the 3. So I can send you all 3, and I can send you the ones we drafted before then. But I wanted to let you know that that's why they're theirs, because it got put back in the code. Neither one of them is legal, because even though they did pull business licenses, they never went through the process that had been taken out in 2017 and accidentally got put back in 2019. They never went back through the process to get the approval for the structure they're selling out of, which is the tent. So we have notified both of them that they have zoning code violations by engaging in that activity within a tent. For what it's worth, if there is going to be a discussion about it, I would say a discussion about a bare minimum, the process to get approval should probably be had, because at the point they came in to pull business licenses, had everybody known that this got added back in and they filed an application for a seasonal building permit as well, the earliest we would have been able to hear it and potentially approve it would have been your July council meeting. So it is quite a lengthy process to get approval to be able to sell something out of a tent. So you have now been informed that we found this issue. If anybody wants to look at making changes, whether it's to remove it, change the process, please let me know, and I'll be happy to share the history with you. And if you're happy to leave it as is, you at least now know what the as is, and so you can decide if you want to do nothing.
So in 2029, will it go back out when you do the next version?
Only if we do well, no, because we're going to pull from the same version of the code that
Well, I
it's in
mean,
there.
but what if you did something like, we're not going to be a strong mayor city, and that didn't get put in, then would all of a sudden we would have changed?
No, because that's, you only codify your ordinances, and that's a city charter issue.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, charter.
So you can't change the charter that way. And codifications are designed to be able to make some changes in the code, because a lot of times you're adopting loose leaf ordinances that may not harmonize with one another. And so going through the codification process, especially back in the early 1900s, was an opportunity. I mean, it was envisioned to be, now you assign ordinance numbers and sections within the code and clean up some of the language, maybe take out some antiquated language. So, I mean, it is designed that a codification could result in a change in the language itself. We just didn't do it deliberately.
So I got a question. What is it like, what is the ordinance now? They're not allowed?
They're allowed, if you apply for a seasonal building permit, get in front of the planning commission and then city council, which of
That's
course.
the process is now. So it is legal as long as they go through that process. Okay.
And this illustrates, if you're happy to see tents with Thunder Gear being sold out of it, the problem is, because we need advance notice of an application and staff time to review it and then get it on the planning commission agenda, and because we didn't know that the Thunder were going to be in the final until, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, there would have been no way for them to get a seasonal building permit approved unless they were really thinking ahead and just wanted to pull a permit just in case.
Well, my other question is, what if you're a private company, you own your own private business, and you just want to do a tent sale like we see Harbor Freight will do every now and then, right? I have a tent sale out in their parking lot.
Or a feathered nest.
Would they still have to go through this process to do that?
Yes, just like if they were wanting to build a new building to sell out of, they would have to get building permits.
Okay.
The difference is this seasonal building permit, unlike all the others, has to go through planning commission and council.
Okay, well, I kind of like that process. So the process we have now actually kind of works for me.
And if so, then.
As long as they're able to do it, I think they should absolutely be able to use we don't
They
need
would just
government
need to
coming in and
think
telling
ahead.
people if it's outside of
Yes, you do.
health and safety, then we really don't need to be telling people what they need to be
They
doing.
would just need to know ahead of time so that they could get an application in time for it to get on planning commission, get on city council, which often means you're waiting about a month.
Gotcha. The process could be cleaned up if we needed to do anything.
And that'd be the question, is whether it needs to go through council and staff when the building permit doesn't. But you want to build a building, you don't go through city council and staff. You want to have a tent, you go through city council and planning commission. I mean, that might be the easiest way to point out where that's a little weird. Tent, you
Yeah.
got to get planning commission and city council. Building, you don't. You have to get staff, and it costs a lot more money, and it's already going to take more time to build a building. But you want to move a shack in, you want to pull a trailer in, you want to have a tent, it's going to take you a little bit longer.
Okay.
By the time I got to Feathered Nest, all they had were booths, but they didn't have tents. All they had were tables, no booths. And that's the same thing as a Girl Scout selling canned cookies outside of Walmart.
Yeah.
And that's okay. These were vendors
I don't
from
know.
inside the store, and they pulled their wares outside and just had a table.
And in a garage sales, people do that too, but I guess that's a whole other monster.
Yeah, but that's
Something
specifically
different.
addressed in the code. And so what you do on a residential property with a garage sale permit, this is about commercial property and sales at commercial locations.
So as long as it's just a table. it's
Bring your sunscreen.
Gotcha.
So no tents allowed unless you get a permit or whatever.
Let's get a permit. You don't have to get a permit for sunscreen.
Well, the most successful event in Oklahoma City downtown, it's before Christmas, the pop-up tents, where the city actually provides small tents, if they look like eggs, really pretty, and people come and rent them, and the sale is great. It's one of the best things that you can enjoy during that time. I think we should adopt something like that, honestly.
Man, like the way they did Scissortail Park, you know, they have all the stalls for all the food truck trailers, and then they got the tent areas too.
And that ties into your
I'm
ideas.
gonna go ahead and hit pause.
Yeah,
Hey, you
farmers
can't,
market.
yeah,
I'm gonna hit pause here because we're now getting into a discussion on the
Other stuff,
substance of
yeah.
something that's not on the agenda. If you want it on the agenda, and even if it's just a discussion item for us to decide, do we want to pursue a change? We can put it on the next month's agenda, but this all came down within the last week, and so it didn't have time to make it my report and didn't have time, we didn't even know what to put on the agenda, if anything.
My question to you, if the city owns those tents, do the people who will rent them will need a permit from the city?
This is that fun point where I get to say, and everybody hates this answer, which is the city's not subject to its own zoning code. So if the city's putting up the tents,
Good, thank you.
city can do it. Nobody likes hearing that, but that's what the Oklahoma Supreme Court has said.
Anything else?
Only if the zoning code applied, we would have to get rid of the animal shelter. Because private person couldn't operate an animal shelter there based on the zoning.
Oh, they can't?
Nope.
Oops. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's not oops because
Just
the
kidding.
zoning code isn't for us, for whatever reason.
Okay, so, Public Works Director.
Refer all questions on seasonal to Mike Schmidt. One quick story, we had a former mayor that did not like food trucks, and there was one across from Whataburger at 36 MacArthur. And then as we would go to lunch, our route never included 36 and MacArthur because there would be a 30-minute discussion of stopping and all that.
Nope, we're gonna go over this way for lunch.
Yes, we wanted to eat lunch. Anyway, just recognize all the employees that makes the Public Works works, all the different departments, a lot of moving parts. Anybody that's went down 63rd probably noticed some construction there at the Isabella at the Wood Creek Court and 63rd. There was a sinkhole that developed actually on Cinco de Mayo. We call it Sinkhole de Mayo on May the 4th. So it actually happened on Sunday, and would like to give a shout out to Isabella's maintenance man, Corey Littleton, actually lives there on site. He heard the sound of the collapse of the asphalt into the huge hole. So he went out and actually got construction fencing and secured the site until he was trying to figure out, this was on a Sunday, so he was trying to figure out who actually owned it. So he made phone calls, and so he finally got a hold of us Monday morning, and then we went out immediately and put up construction fencing and started the repairs. The sinkhole was caused by a water leak right there along 63rd. There was a 12-inch water main that had been leaking undisclosed. Somehow it had migrated to the manhole to the north, which is about 50 feet, and took all the soil out, probably about 10 to 12 feet deep. It took all the soil out, and a hole approximately not quite as big as this area right here has developed in the parking lot, and all the soil was taken down the sewer main to the sewer plant. So I think the trust is working on that. The engineer was getting a quote from Craft Rentals to try to get that repaired. We got a couple items on the agenda for trucks. Is there any questions on the report included in your packet?
No.
All right.
City engineer?
City engineer and planner reports, unless there's questions, there's no items.
Librarian?
Good evening. Came prepared tonight with some notes, so I wouldn't ramble. So I kind of just want to do a recap first of our summer reading kickoff, which was the last Saturday in May. And I can't remember if, I think I mentioned it, but I just kind of wanted to give a recap of the activities and kind of the interaction from the community that we had. So we did successfully launch summer reading on May 31st. With a fun, family-friendly kickoff event. We welcomed approximately 377 guests in just 2 hours. So that's pretty good for us because we are small but mighty. So that was a lot of people in that library within 2 hours.
Wow.
We actually were able to sign up 217 people for summer reading during the actual event. And so as you know, summer reading will continue through July 31st, so people can still sign up all the way through the last day. The activities that we had that day included, and I'll just name a few, we had a caricature artist that was there that day. We had face painting, temporary tattoos, messy art time outside, yarn lantern making. Our children's area also remained a popular space. We had featured books, toys, and other coloring activities. We also had our beloved mascot, whose name is Spoticus, that was there, delighting the children and helping hand out books. And we did raffles where we gave away 20 books for each hour, and lots of people were excited about that. Reusable tote bags we gave away, and also library grab bags that had lots of library swag. We had an ice cream truck there to give a sweet treat to the day. It wasn't free, but it was pretty low cost for our community. And then that was also the same day that the City County Health Department comes out with a mobile truck that day to give out produce, so they were also there. So the parking lot was busy with lots of people. The activities we have going on through, for the remainder of the month of June, we have Creative Writing Wednesday for adults only on Wednesdays from 5:30 to 7:30. We have an art time coming up this Friday at 10 o'clock, so please bring any littles or anyone you know for that. Our neighborhood arts performance, which again happens every Friday through the end of July. It's a partnership we have with the Oklahoma Museum of Art. So this week we will feature the Oklahoma Violin Ensemble. Yes, it is free, Friday at 3 o'clock at the library, and it lasts about 45 minutes, but it's just a way to get our community to come out and hear some culture. It's live streamed instruments there in the library, so it does get a little bit loud, so it probably wouldn't be the best time to come and study or take a Zoom call, but but you can definitely come in and enjoy the ensemble. We're also going to do Painting with Wool, which is an interactive art program, and that's with the partnership with the Oklahoma Contemporary Museum of Art. That's going to be Tuesday the 24th at 6 o'clock. We have the YMCA coming out on Wednesday the 25th at 9 o'clock. They're going to do a high energy movement class for children. And then we will also have on the 26th of June, so Thursday at 2 o'clock, Goodwill of Central Oklahoma, who was one of our partners, is going to come in and do a job skills success workshop. So they will come in and help individuals with job search, resume writing, and other workplace readiness skills. It's all free. They just come in the room. They don't have to register, sign up. We also make announcements and ask people that are in the library who may need some of those skills to come in and sit in and just get some help with that. And then again, the Oklahoma City County Health Department will be here again the last Saturday of June, again at 12:30. That's June 28th. So thank you all for the opportunity again to speak. Thank you for allowing us to be your community hub for learning and to also help with the summer slide by offering summer reading. And thank you to the Public Works. You all came out and put a new pump in. Our bathrooms were closed down most of the day, and so thank you for coming out to do that. That has been a lifesaver. You all are great. The response was quick, and so we really appreciate that as well. And thank you to the members of the City Council, especially during the summer when families need us most, to continue to support us in summer reading. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Okay. Well, I've got to leave and go to Vacation Bible School. I'm not leaving because I don't want to stay, but thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you, Keisha.
Thank you.
I gotta go to Vacation Bible School too.
Okay, our next item is discussion and possible action on authorizing OMAG to apply the escrow account funds in the amount of $64,815.90 to the workers' compensation policy premium. Crystal?
I don't know why she has me on here.
Okay.
Because you're here. Okay, so I'll pinch hit. You're in a work comp plan that obviously they try and estimate what your costs are going to be for a given year, and you won't know until you've had, I hate to say it this way, but the employees have been injured and they start treating and they have an idea of what the cost is going to be for that year for the work comp. And so if there's money left over, then you have a right to a refund of it. What, from my experience at OMAG, what the vast majority of cities do is when they're eligible for their refund, rather than getting a check and then writing a check for their premiums, they just tell them, apply what we've got coming to us to the premiums so we can write a smaller check.
It's kind of an annual thing, isn't it?
Yep.
I remember doing this last year.
Yeah. Well, we hope it's an annual thing, because
Yes.
if it's not an annual thing, then that means that our injuries were higher than what they were expecting, and we probably had to write an extra check to work comp.
So anybody make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the application of the money listed to the escrow account.
I'll second.
Morris?
Yay.
Musselwhite? Yes. Worley?
Yay.
Fairchild?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes?
Schmidt?
Yay.
Evans?
Yes.
Douglas?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. Discussion and possible action on approval of a resolution approving the financing for the polycarts, and the payments are budgeted in the CIP budget. Mr. Turbin.
So this looks like the cart before the horse, so the truck is the next item, but assuming we're moving forward with this, I have some color samples here of the various carts. There was a color brochure you should have received. I didn't put it in this packet, and I couldn't find it, so here's some samples here. We also have the representative from Chris Knight with his company that sells the carts and the truck that's here to answer questions. So we're going to start out with Matt. We'll let Matt pick the colors here, so.
What am I doing?
Do they have a color that matches his shirt? Because that's a cool color.
I just don't want blue because it looks too much like Oklahoma City. What colors does Bethany have? Do
Blue?
they have blue too?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. I didn't want
Blue
it to
and
match
green,
Bethany's.
pretty much. is what
So
you got.
I was gonna say
I just
I
want 'em-
wouldn't do green because people associate that with recycling.
Recycling, yeah.
So
Maybe
I'd
the
say any
gray.
other color.
Maybe the
would be-
gray. Yeah, I like the gray.
We don't have orange?
Agree. Black.
Orange. Oh.
Well, our city colors
So-
are blue and gold.
We could ask all the people here. What color garbage cans would you guys like in the neighborhoods? Because you guys are from the city, like you would.
We got
There's
light
green,
blue,
blue, black, gray. Black or gray?
black or gray.
Black.
Gray is, pass them that way.
I like the gray one. I do like the gray one myself.
You actually you can get any color you want. Those colors are selected just because those colors are being made on a
Right.
regular basis. And the chances of you having a huge order after your initial order, you're probably gonna have small orders. So if you get a color outside of those, there may be a delay before you can get your carts, because they gotta wait until they have that color rolling at the plant. So that's why, but those are made regularly, so you wouldn't have a wait, and that's why those colors were selected.
In our carts, there's about a 15-year lifespan. Of course, you're gonna have people put probably coals from their fireplace and burn up a few. Some will probably be lost when the truck picks them up. They let go of them, it gets into the hopper and gets crushed. People run over them with their cars, those sorts of things. But we don't really anticipate a huge number, but we don't want to get too many. I think Bethany had too many cars that were piled up everywhere. They started collecting water and mosquitoes. So you kind of want to find that sweet spot, which his vendor has determined, which is 4,500 for us to give everybody a chance for, we think, 1.5 carts, which will, most people want one. Some people want 2 carts, and then there'll be a few with 3. So
Because it's 95 gallons, right?
It is.
So that's gigantic, really. It's big.
It's a big cart. I have them, and
It'll hold a week's worth of trash.
so we
It
have.
will.
Most people put out 4 pounds a day of trash is the average amount of trash generated by each person. So I have them local in the city. We have 2. We hardly ever fill it up. There's 2 of us. If you need more, of course, the third car will cost more once we develop a rate, which we'll bring
About 6 to 8 weeks on the carts once
to
they're
get
ordered.
carts and delivered and get everything kind of in place. So,
Now, the truck could be here tomorrow.
yeah, but we don't have any carts big enough.
No, you don't.
So,
This may be off topic, but will we put our logo on there or our seal?
Yes.
Or which one it'll be? The logo or the seal or?
you know, that's what
The new
I meant to
logo,
give
the
you a
old
sample
logo?
today. I like this Warr seal here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll just be like a white version, it'll be probably about the size of a baseball.
I think that's what Bethany has.
Brand them in, right?
Acres
Kinda.
inside, and then we'll have like a serial number on it. Now, we don't really plan on tracking the serial numbers, it becomes difficult to track all those, trying to track it to each house.
But a resident could make note of their personal serial number and if
You
they got
could.
in an argument with their neighbors or whatever.
You could put your name on, lift the lid up and put your house number on the inside, you don't wanna make them look ugly,
Yeah, ideally,
so, ideally.
unless you're artsy.
I think the financing was,
No, I think that's what's on the screen.
5430.
so the financing for the carts was a monthly payment of $5,430 at 4.89%, 60 months, a total of $188,325 in for 4,365 carts.
I guess this is a question for Matt. How do we, do you explain the financing when we cannot encumber more than 1 year?
We're leasing them until we own them. So technically, it's a year-to-year lease.
But they're not gonna repossess a trash cart. They could a piece of equipment or a police vehicle. I understood the concept there. I don't understand it on a poly.
It's the same concept with just a different practicality behind it. Yeah, it's not
But
practical.
legally, it's.
Legally, it's fine because we're not bound to it beyond 1 year. The reason they do it, you've already pointed out, it's not a good, secure transaction because what's it really worth, especially after some trash gets put in it. I don't know another way to say it other than they know that the city, if it makes that decision to move that direction, is gonna do it. Because what would the alternative be? So.
And I could, I meant to get a lot better job on presentation on this. There was a color brochure that has multiple colors, so maybe I can get that rounded up and get it out to everybody, and maybe in the next week or so, we could pick a color, give everybody a chance to respond.
I think we ought to stay with the standard colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to have a backlog when we order more. Or have to-
Right, well, hopefully we're not ordering a whole lot more, so hopefully they'll,
Yeah.
Mike, what's
Even in
the
5 years.
financing gonna be on the truck? I know that's the next item, but,
it's on
it
there.
shows the same rate.
so what would the total, moving to polycarts, what's the total cost gonna be to the city per month?
The truck is right there on the same sheet. It's,
Yeah, it's right above.
same interest rate, 60 months, $7,345 per month.
So what, about 50?
13, almost 12,000.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the annual cost here to then make a point. What, you're looking at about 140 a year-ish that you'd be paying for 60 months, times 12 months. And the only reason I bring that up is the way that you've historically budgeted in CIP is you have budgeted to buy outright and then kind of held that money year over year. This frees up money in the CIP budget because instead of, I think what, Mike, we had $450,000 budgeted for a truck.
Correct.
Well, you're not going to need all of that. To be fair, what you've historically done is roll that appropriation year to year to year to year to year without spending it. Essentially, you're moving in a different direction. You started with the police department in upgrading their fleet to where you're not going to spend as much money in any 1 year, but you're going to commit yourself to spending money every year in order to get where you want to go. So it's a little bit of a different mindset. It commits a little bit more of your CIP money to actually be spent on an annual basis while freeing up money that you were budgeting just in case year over year.
And
When are we gonna see this happening? What is the
You have to vote.
Think he said the truck tomorrow, but the truck won't be doing very much until these come in.
right. So, go ahead.
Not
ready. Once we get.
Can I drive it?
If you approve 6 to 8 weeks to
Gotta
get
be
the
CDL driver.
carts.
We may put you to work.
Then the company will deliver the carts to every resident. We'll need a supplied list from the city of the addresses, but then they'll deliver all the carts to them.
So obviously we have some work to do, you know, redefine the ordinance and the carts and all those things that address handicap, those particular special circumstances. We have some other areas we might have to look at, like our new subdivision Crystal and I looked at today because of the configuration of they're called driveways. They look like cul-de-sacs, but they're driveways. And anyway, so we'll be taking a look at that. We also have 4 refuse trucks, so we're planning on selling off two of those. We're going to keep 2 refuse trucks. They're going to add tippers at $52,000 for 4 of them, 2 per truck. So those are going to assist the main truck. The main truck's goal is going to be just to pick up the poly carts, and then there'll be maybe an hour or 2 a day. The residential or the rear loader with tippers would go out and pick up, you know, no-pace carts, replace carts, things of that sort, where the expensive truck that's doing all the labor is kept busy and utilized to its maximum efficiency. And then we also have another truck, a front loader, 2 front loaders, one for sure we just got operational and repaired here a month and a half ago. We got some major work done on it, so we're planning on selling that. Hopefully we get 50 to 80,000, maybe more. The other truck maybe $100,000+. So hopefully by the end of this year we can have those trucks auctioned off to make the transition. So there is going to be a transition period. It's going to, you know, obviously we're planning on keeping the trucks in case everything goes south for some reason or whatever. We'll still have the cans and the rear loaders available until we, you know, work out operational details, which it shouldn't be overly complicated, but there'll be a break-in period for everybody, from residents to us to everybody.
What's the plan on informing the citizenry
gonna
of all the changes in the carts are coming and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think we can address it in the newsletter, or we could send out a specific letter, and once we get the details hammered out, and then give them
Because the routes will change, right? Because it'll go to once a week.
to once a week. Yes, the routes will change to once a week, and then on the number of houses, there was a little bit more houses in Ward 1, so we'll have to probably shift a little bit, or we can see what, we know the truck can do somewhere around 1,400 carts a day, so it's right at the limit of, I think in Ward 1, there was about 1,150 or 1,400? Somewhere, let's see.
And
Yeah,
growing.
977 homes, so there's about 1,200 carts maybe in Ward 1. So we can move it around and shift it to make it all work 4 days a week.
Are you gonna still keep Wednesdays for your,
We're gonna keep Wednesday for, you know, like holidays. A lot of people complain, oh, the holidays on a Monday, but if you look over 5 years, you know, obviously there's, you know, the standard ones are fixed, like Thanksgiving, Memorial Day, those sorts of things are fixed, but it does shift a little bit, so Wednesday will be the makeup day.
Are we using Wednesday right now to take the big pile of the trees over to the landfill?
We have our guys work on that as daily, like if they get done early, but like the front loader drivers, they can drive the grappling truck. Now we have one driver that has the Class A for the grappling truck. So we utilize him on Wednesdays to haul off loads, but we can utilize the roll-off truck on other days of the week. And if it's not too muddy, then we have our front loader drivers, one of those two, load that thing up and take it to the landfill. So we had a lot of brush from the windstorm that we had a couple months ago on a Friday, where we had the 50-mile-an-hour winds or 80-mile-an-hour winds. So there was a humongous amount of limbs that was picked up. So probably about double what we normally pick up in this quarterly trash pickup. So
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution approving the financing for the poly carts.
Second.
yay?
Yes. Worley?
Yay.
Fairchild?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yay.
Evans?
Yes.
Douglas?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, and the next one's the discussion of possible action on the approval of the resolution approving the financing for the side load trucks And payments are budgeted.
Yeah, this is the same bank, Arvison Bank. Truck cost us $390,000. It's 4.89%, 60 months. $7,345 a month payment. There will be there is a salvage value associated at the end of year 5 with the truck. Obviously I like to take care of equipment, so it's always driver dependent, but I like to shepherd over that. So obviously the better care, the more you can get out of it. We may see that it might be worth keeping the truck as a backup if we'll always probably have a rear loader with tippers on it. But if we get to the point in 5 years and we see the condition maybe in year 3, see how everything is working to project to see when we need to replace that truck. But typically 5 to 7 years, you can imagine it's probably making 250,000 pickups a year if you do the math on 3,200 homes and 4,000 carts a week. So you can do the math real quick. So a lot of motion and pickup. So it's an industrial piece of equipment. Heil probably makes one of the best Packer bodies. Mack, we've had the best luck with Mack on repairs. They seem to be the most durable and the least amount of problems overall with particularly wiring and computer systems. So they're proven, they're very reliable. I think he uses them in Stillwater. They use them, and they're used all over the nation. So they're one of the top trucks in the industry. So I think we'll get a lot of good utility out of it.
So I had a question because it was brought up right before the meeting, like that gated community, how are you going to address picking up their garbage cans?
And if you'll recall, the people that were here, we had that discussion when that came up on the Planning Commission. And I brought it up. We tried to ask questions like, how are you going to pick up the trash with this configuration? So the can was kind of kicked down the street. So I talked to Tabor Homes developer. He really didn't have a plan. And today we had a call from the property management company that set up the 60 accounts. And then, so Crystal and I drove right out there before we came here so she can get an idea of what we're looking at. And so the question, the things that I came up with it's basically, for those of you who haven't been out there, it's just picture a straight street and there's like a side, they call it a driveway. It's not really a cul-de-sac. But on each side, there's 60 homes, there's 10 streets, so there's 6 homes per driveway. So it's about 175 feet from the center of the street to the furthest house. So obviously the truck is probably it's not designed to go on their driveways. It's not thick enough concrete. So one of the ideas I had was they may have to be charged an extra fee if we have to go up and pull those carts down and tip them on the street. Or if we have to roll our cart and use the rear tipper, like we have a dolly looking cart now, maybe they have a special rate because we have to do extra labor and figure out that they're going to just have to pay a little bit more for us to go in and do the labor. So that was my thinking on that.
Or they can just bring them down to the end of the
say that.
driveway like everybody else does, and we won't spend the extra money.
Right, but it's a 55 community. That's a great question. Are they really going to drag the cart down 175 feet?
Do they want trash? If they call it a driveway, they have to treat it as a driveway.
There you go.
That's good.
So,
Yeah.
I agree.
It's not built to commercial standards. It's
Yeah.
not built for
No.
any other trucks to go down it, so they get to serve as a driveway. We have to drag it to the end of our driveway. They can drag it to theirs.
Long
They were
driveways.
talking about
Yeah.
doing an extra fee for handicap services for the people that can't wheel them out to their driveway.
That's enough.
It would be the same,
Yeah.
But they're not handicapped.
well, if it's a.
Age is not a handicap.
Yeah,
We're all getting old, and that's not a handicap. That's by grace.
That was just an idea. If anybody has ideas, contact me.
I'm gonna make a call to take it home tomorrow and actually talk to
Okay,
somebody now that
talk
I've
through
actually
it.
have seen what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, I only brought it up so that way we know that we're talking about having to address it. So, no,
Are you gonna make a motion, Judy?
they're talking, so I was waiting for them to be done.
I think they're talking about that.
I don't know what they're
They're
doing.
talking about.
I'll make a motion to approve the financing for the side loader truck.
A second.
Okay. Kids.
Kit,
Yay.
Mossaway,
Yes.
Worley,
Yay.
Fairchild,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yay.
Evans,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
motion passed.
And thank you all. I will get everybody the color, the manufacturer's sell sheet with all the color sell sheet. We'll come up with this sell sheet we can print off that and get it out to you to try to select a color. Unless you guys are just set on a color, if you want to pick one of these colors here.
I think you should use your knowledge and expertise to pick out a color.
When there's women involved in paint colors,
Well, I'm just saying we're gonna have 8 different colors.
It was great.
I think it's
Gray and black.
I
Well, she wants orange, Rosia, like,
think,
Burnt orange at that.
how about red?
honestly, if we want to select a color, I think we should make a poll on the Facebook page of the city, put the colors and the samples, and have people vote for it, and whatever color comes out,
majority, yeah.
that would be it.
Yeah,
Have crimson,
except-
half
Do you know how to
burnt.
make a poll?
I don't know how to make a poll.
You have to reorder, and those people that made that color choice didn't have all the information.
Well, we just give them like 2 or 3 colors to pick from.
Just say,
I don't think they should have a choice.
Gray. I like gray. Nice, neutral.
Keep in the trash can. It's gonna be brand new.
You want me to
I
just
just,
pick a
I
color?
just know like Bethany's are blue, right?
Correct.
So you don't want blue for the street that's half Bethany and half Warr Acres, because
Same
then
way
they
in
won't know
Oklahoma
which
City.
garbage can to pick up, or which one's in the middle of the street, and
Those guys know.
I'm just saying, I'm blaming Bethany, not Warr Acres. The Warr Acres people will know, but the Bethany people might.
So you want me to pick the
I-
color, or
I'd
do you want me to
say-
give you a color?
Well, I mean, it's up to you. Do you guys want to vote on it next month? Is that enough time still to get them done, or do we need to decide today?
We can.
It's not on the agenda, so I don't know if
let
we
us
can.
get a standard black one, not gray, so it looks
I
worse
don't know, can we even
with
talk
the
about this
sun.
map?
There's
Black, it will fade to gray.
Do-
If you get
If the
gray, it
council
will
wants
fade
to make the
ugly.
decision,
If
then
you
we
get
would need to
black,
put
it
it
will
on.
fade to gray,
Right.
at least.
Do these colors fade?
Of course.
they're UV stabilized.
They'll be solid all the way through.
If the council wants to make the decision, then we'll have to wait to make an order until next month. If council just wants staff to make the decision, that's the route that staff will go unless somebody wants to request an item
I
for
will
next
go with the
month
staff.
to make the decision.
Staff. Just not the green.
Yep.
And all calls can go to Mike Turman about
On
the
you,
color
Mike.
of the garbage cans.
I want to have a meeting with you,
Okay.
please.
It's red cards, so.
Okay, I say yes. Okay,
So staff will make the call so that they can get the
Yeah.
order in.
Yes.
okay. Discussion and possible action on a request for an extension of full paid benefits until September 8th of 2025 for John Feith as provided by state statute 11. I'm going to let Chief Anderson go on about that.
Yeah, the state statute under the Title 11 is the police pension fund. It mirrors in a lot of ways that of the fire pension system. And if a covered person is injured or temporarily disabled or sick and cannot perform their duties, the municipality, it states, shall provide their benefits for a period of 6 months with the option that the city can extend it for 6 months. A few months ago, I don't recall how long ago, I know this council had addressed the similar issue with the fire department. And as the attorney stated then, if these go to an argument or to arbitration, historically, the city loses on it. If I'm not trying to put words in the attorney's mouth here. So if I'm wrong, feel free to step in and correct me.
It's not as much an arbitration issue as it is a practical issue, and to cut through it, I can make all the arguments, but I'll tell you that in my 15, 16 years here, you have, as a matter of course, have always approved these.
I just saw John recently, and he really was suffering. He needed to pick up something, and he had to use his elbow to grab something because he couldn't use his hand. And I think I was surprised. I didn't know that he was injured on
They have these statutes so that they're defined benefit pensions that have years of service for vesting. And so if you go out on a traditional work comp, you're not getting pension contributions, so you're not getting years of service. My recommendation, without even knowing any of the details on it, would be that you approve it because you approved it for, I think, a firefighter here a couple months ago, and you have always
everyone
approved
of them,
these for everybody, and at least since 2009, and assuredly before that. But it has to come for you for a vote, so.
Who wants to make a motion over there?
I move we approve the benefits for John Feith until September 8th, 25.
I'll second that.
Morris?
Yay.
I don't know. Yes.
Worley?
Yay.
Fairchild?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay.
Evans?
Yes.
Douglas?
Yes. Okay, well, wish Mike would come back. Okay. Discussion and possible action on an ordinance amending Chapter 2.09 of the Warr Code related to the appointment, qualifications, powers, and duties of the code enforcement officer. I gave everyone a little history of the ordinances regarding the code enforcement officer in Warr Acres. Started in 1992. The code enforcement director was appointed by the mayor and directly responsible under the supervision of the mayor. The qualifications were established, the duties were established. Then in July of 2007, they moved the code enforcement officer or director under the supervision of Public Works. And then Matt made a list that showed us the items A through F that had been listed under the code enforcement officer but had always been done by the building inspector. So then in April of 2022, they adopted the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code, and those duties were still listed as being under the code enforcer, even though the building inspector had always done these duties.
I'll add, just from a legal standpoint, I mean, the policy decision's up to you. First off, I would say if you haven't studied your packet in depth and you're looking at the memo for the first time, I would encourage you to look at the item 12 memo as well, because if you just look at item 11, it'll look like we're just stopping doing a bunch of things. Most of what you're going to find, especially when it relates to those itemized duties, is a shift. We're taking it out of code enforcement and putting it over to inspector. So we're not stopping doing anything. We're just changing who's responsible for it. I will tell you that since I came on in 2009, those duties you see under code enforcement have been done by the inspector. And so at some point in time, I don't know when, the code was adopted and it was originally put under the code enforcer. And if I had to guess, it was probably a decision based on who was in the staff at that time. And at some point in time, staff turned over, somebody was in inspection that they thought that would be a better place to put it, and they moved all those duties without coming back to ask you, because you had put it in the law that it was supposed to be the code enforcer doing it, but for at least 16 years, probably longer than 20 years, it's been done by somebody else. So we're putting the duties where they've actually been done. I will tell you, just from my experience working with municipalities, most of those duties don't make a lot of sense being under code. I mean, it's an overly simplistic way to look at it, but if you think of it this way, the inspector is there to make sure that you did it right the first time. The code enforcer is there to see if you changed something to make it wrong. Most of what the code enforcer is responsible for doing are things that you do the first time. It makes more sense that it would be the person inspecting the property that would keep those records and would perform those duties. So logically, it made more sense to put it over there. The last thing I'll say on a legal standpoint as it relates to item 11, the mayor is partially right and partially wrong.
Oh,
They put code under public works in one section, but it's under the mayor in another section. So we had an automatic conflict within our code where one section said the code enforcer directly reports to the mayor. Another section said the code enforcer reports to the public works director. So this reminds me of the movie Office Space, where at least in that movie, the person had 3 bosses. In our code, they just had 2.
Why do we want to change it from public work to the mayor?
So there's not a lot of places in the code that you're going to find staff level positions that report, that don't report ultimately to the mayor. The way that I put it into the code is that it can be a direct report to the mayor or a designee that the mayor designates.
I'm sorry, repeat
or,
that.
Or a designee. So the mayor could designate a department head to be responsible for the day-to-day
So
What that-
maybe, so what you're saying is if she will decide that the fire department needs to take that issue with the code.
She could give code
she
to
can-
Stephen, and Stephen just popped his head up
Or
saying,
the
what?
police department to take a.
Hey, I like
So,
that.
so let me, she could, and I say she, the mayor could. And each mayor that comes in that's elected by the citizens may want to reorganize how people report to him. What I would tell you is that we automatically have I automatically see a supervision issue already baked in if we're having the positions report to Public Works, and it's nothing against Mike. Mike's office is at a different location. But Mike's responsible for, among other things, signing off on the person's timesheet. Mike's not here. Now, if a future mayor came in and changed City Hall's layout and wanted to move code inspection to the police department, to the Public Works yard, it might make sense then to change the direct supervision to somebody who's on site. And we haven't seen a lot of that, but the only example I can think of is at one point in time at the old City Hall, the municipal court was in the City Hall side of it. Now it's at the police department side. And so if we're wanting to make sure that the people at the court are showing up every single day, the mayor can't do that at City Hall. The city clerk can't do that at City Hall. Police chief could, because he's at his building. So the way that I tried to write it is to allow the most flexibility. Ultimately, by charter, the charter says that the mayor supervises directly or indirectly every employee of the city. So I tried to harmonize that in the code, and putting expressly in the code that the mayor can delegate the supervision authority to a department head. And then it would allow it to, as each mayor comes in and as operations change over the years, to make those pivots and adjustments as needed. So that's how I tried to draft it. Most of what you see in there,
Changing something, it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to change it back to something else if it is not being tested, right?
I would agree with you in principle, and I would disagree in practice. In principle, I would agree that depending on the scale of the operation, making an overhaul and a change can take some time. I will tell you that in practice, at least going back to the old City Hall, Mike didn't have an office at the old City Hall. Mike doesn't have an office at the current City Hall. Mike's had responsibility for, among other things, signing off and directly supervising two employees that unless he comes to City Hall, he won't see.
But if a mayor wants to contact Public Works, she can just pick up the phone and call them, right?
Sure.
I need this done.
She can drive over there as well,
Shoot
but
an
yeah.
email.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
shoot an
this-
email, text, a phone call, a visit, we're not that big.
We have cities and country was operating on Zoom not long ago. That's not a big deal, right?
True.
Okay.
Mike, have any input?
I can tell you from the history of the last, since 2002, we've typically, there's about 300, roughly 10% of our houses annually that we have given a notice for high grass and weeds and those sorts of things. So basically, that's a correction notice. Most people comply with the correction notice. We have to file, obviously, the state law requires us to file a 10-day notice or send a 10-day notice certified mail. We usually post the front door define what the violation is as far as the code violation, which would be typically high grass and weeds. Sometimes it's dilapidated materials, junk like that, junk and stuff left in the yard, unattended or unkept stuff. Most people respond. I think yearly we mow 10 to 15, maybe 20 properties, depending on the season. If it's particularly rainy, like right now, we have a lot of high grass and it's growing like crazy. Which requires us to give another notice to give them 30 days to pay. If they don't pay, then we go down to the county assessor and then we file the cost of that abatement through, they call it the weed tax or the lien. They attach a lien to the property and they start assessing a interest rate. And then if the property sells, the city gets their amount back, and then the county keeps the interest for, I guess, for paperwork and bookkeeping. So most of those are reclaimed at some point, some aren't. Sometimes the transition happens, like we mow the lawn and the house sells the next day. So
How much you charge them when you mow that?
it just depends on the size of the lot and what's done, how tall it is. Like, say it's an unkept property, they sometimes have to weed eat it by hand because there's bricks and stuff. One contractor went out and mowed a repeat property, and there was a stump or something out there in his nice, expensive John Deere lawnmower. It sheared the shaft on his motor, which was $3,000, so. I mean,
have
people
one-
people complain about the price for the contractor, so the contractor we've been using has workers' comp, he has the insurance in case a rock goes through a window or a car, so he's responsible for repairing damages. He's supposed to carry all that on his workers if they receive an injury while they're doing the work for the city. The phone line is open. If anybody wants to abate, they would supply those documents and requirements, and they could bid on it. We've not really had anybody other than this one contractor reach out. We had some phone calls. Yeah, send it in. We'll put you on the rotation, but no one's ever sent in the paperwork to meet those requirements. So, we want to put the city in the most advantageous position to do the property maintenance. I know I've attended the class. There's a Code Enforcement Association that's statewide. Andy Templeton out of Sand Springs runs it. He's a great individual. There's just a lot of issues with code enforcement. Typically, the high grass and weeds are the easiest. Sometimes you have the hoarders, which is one of the most difficult. We're personally involved with one lady over and towards 58th and Donald. So that was a very difficult case to deal with. The state reached out to mental health. They determined she had a phone and could order pizza. She really wasn't unfit, but she really was. If you saw the condition of the house, there was sleeping on dead rats and the filth. And
Oh.
it was pretty tough for me to try to help the individual. We tried to clean up for her. We spent our own funds trying to help her. We had the city place, Jed over here at City Center, thank you. He came out, they did some volunteer work. We had some other volunteer people show up. So those are the toughest cases. The mental health is kind of handicapped. That's an issue. So it's typically all over the United States, the mental health. We probably have.
What's your opinion on adding this to what Public Works does, or giving it to them underneath the mayor?
A mayor.
Really, Cheryl did most of the work. I would periodically attend the class just to keep abreast, like see
How much work is it actually to do code enforcement?
It really, if you've,
How much work?
I guess
How
so,
many hours a month do you think it?
I think it's a full-time job when the weeds
Full-time
and
job.
stuff. Because you have to follow up with the paperwork, and when you get
Gotcha.
200 or 300 Cheryl's list, we can get you a list from last year. So you got to follow up. You got to interact with the person. You got to catch them there. Parking on the grass has been a issue, which is under the police,
Gotcha.
under 1084. So yes, I mean it is. I think it's a vital function for the community to try to minimize the amount of bad-looking properties. There's always circumstances such as sometimes people develop a terminal illness and they have no family. And one gentleman was not able to mow his lawn. He didn't have any family. The grass grew. He eventually passed away. The house was in limbo. The same thing with the hoarder lady. It was there was no will, so it sat there. You have those conditions, and so there's always this transition period. People get older, they die off, they don't have family members, or they're out of state. The house sits there and gets dilapidated. We've tore down 2 houses since I've been here. There's been other houses in the past tore down from dilapidation and hoarding. So I think it's an important role for the community. It's part of its, community image. It's always going to be in every community. Every community is almost the same. You could go to any community and almost have the same conversations. These annual training periods, it's everywhere. It's pretty much consistent throughout.
A chunk of the work that people don't realize that code enforcement's responsible for, it's not like they're out there with a notice book that all they're doing is driving around all day,
Yeah.
put a notice on your door, drive to the next one, that's all they do. That's a chunk of what they do, but if we're gonna have to go the abatement process, there are very strict procedural statutes that have to be complied with, filings that have to be made with the county clerk. updated filings with the county clerk, notices of releases of liens filed with the county clerk, because you file something against
Right? You said liens? Yeah.
And it's very important we get those right, because if we get it wrong, one, the taxpayers may not get reimbursed, two, we could cloud somebody's title. And so there's a chunk of the work that the code enforcer does that's sitting at a computer, making sure they get the documentation correct to get on file with the county. And it's not a one and done,
Yeah.
Mike's guys arrest somebody right now, they write a PC affidavit, take them to county, give them the affidavit, and they're pretty much done until they're needed for a prelim. Code enforcement, there's more of the follow-up and more filings that they have prepared to send down to the county. And so, I mean, it's a different job, but it's not a job you spend all day out in the car.
Yeah.
It's a job you spend a decent amount of time at the office in front of a computer, making sure you get all that paperwork correct.
You know the paperwork.
Yeah.
done
Here
in
is,
file.
here is what I learned. I spoke to 4 cities. I spoke to the city of Nichols Hills. They have 1 code enforcement officer that is under the Public Work Authority. I spoke to the village. It is under the manager, and I think they have only 1 and 1 part-time, if I'm not mistaken. They use other department, like the police department, which I am against, as this is written, that they can use police for code enforcement, and this is how they use it in the village. Anything on the property, it's the code enforcement officer. Anything on the street, that's when the police comes, which is not right. Then we have the city of Edmond. The city of Edmond have 7 people covering 100,000 people in the city. 7 people, 4 of them are code enforcement officers, and the rest is supporting staff, which is they do the filing
Filing
and
of
the other things. And they are under what they call, let me remember, community image. Bethany, they have 1. 20,000 people living in Bethany, they have only 1. And the department they are under, it is called Community Development, and it is an outreach. They don't only do, go out and do the tickets, they go out and do connection with the people of the city. We do not want to have a city that we turn against our people to be going and handing tickets and trying to just enforce it. We're trying to basically make the city more beautiful, but also in a friendly way, not to push it in a way that we shouldn't. This is one. The second thing, every one of us here have been in a company where a new leadership comes in and they want to change everything right at first. We don't have a code enforcement officer yet. Let us get a code enforcement officer. Let them start working. Let them keep everything the way it is, and then see how it works, and then we decide after that, and instead of basically changing everything, uprooting everything, not knowing what to do. If we're gonna use a police officer to go and knock on a door, what are we going to do? What's going to happen next? What is if the person who's inside the house have a rough day? What if a person inside that have I am talking really.
We're not using a police officer.
Yeah, I don't see anything that says anything about using the police.
It says that she can use all department. In addition,
Okay.
why are we doing that now?
Can the Public Works Department still do that now?
So I want to clarify one thing. When you're talking about code enforcement, there are dual roles that can be played, administrative and criminal. For many code violations, a citation can be issued. I honestly don't know if we've written a code citation, a criminal citation. What vast majority of code enforcement officers do is they initiate the civil process, which is the abatement process. Frankly, as the prosecutor at the village, the only time that we've issued criminal citations is where it's just a repeat, constant thing, and they've got liens on the property, they're never getting paid, and the person's just constantly letting trash accumulate and weeds accumulate. And so we might go the route of a citation, and then as prosecutor, if the person will agree to get everything fixed and keep it maintained, I'll put them on deferred, and they'll owe nothing if they maintain their property. So we only use that citation as the last resort if we're constantly having to do the civil abatement side of it. But they do have citation authority. That's not something that's new. The only thing that we changed on that ordinance is to harmonize the language, because in some parts of the code, we talk about the code enforcement director, and other parts throughout the code, we talk about code enforcement officer. So I tried to harmonize it to code enforcement officer, but the only reference to police is under citation authority, and it's not that the police would do anything, it's that the code enforcer can write a citation in the same manner as a police officer can write the citation. The other thing I would say, I just want to make sure that we're clear on, is this is not going to be a new position. This is a position that's pre-existing. It's just vacant right now because the last code enforcer is now making sure everybody gets paid, and is the payroll clerk. And so there's a vacancy. That is what as I understand it, I mean, I wrote it based on what the mayor reached out and asked me to take a look at. But my understanding is because we were looking at that position to try and fill it, that's why we were looking at the ordinances and realizing that we had some inconsistencies within the ordinances.
We're in a unique position right now because the position is empty. Let's go ahead and make the corrections while it's open.
And just my personal opinion, the only thing in here that is a substantive change is that there was a conflict in the code where one ordinance said that the code enforcer reports to the mayor directly, another ordinance says they report to the public works director. In practice, prior mayors had them, the timesheets and everything signed off on by the public works director, along with the inspector, who you'll see in the next ordinance has always been a direct report to the mayor. It's never by ordinance been a direct report to the public works director, but the mayor, pursuant to their authority by charter, may have delegated the supervision authority. So we wanted to clean up that conflict one way or another, because we can't have the code say they have two different bosses. They need to have one boss. So that's why we changed that part.
The mayor wants to be in charge of code enforcement. How are, the mayor who is elected, who we have several type of wards, each one of them have a different kind of attitude towards election. So if we're talking about Ward 1, that they go and the majority of them, they go for election, while Ward 4 are not. She would want to have the Ward 1 really happy and not give them tickets, in addition to the difference in wealth. That's one. And to prove it, I have here what you approved yesterday, is when there is a selective way of filing complaint against people, when the election signs put for someone, there were a complaint, 3 complaints about certain people, 2 different houses, while a different one was not complained about because it was Tammy West. They didn't want to piss her off. Is that where we want to be?
This is
Let
not,
us keep.
this
let
is
us
not
keep-
political.
Let us keep.
This is not
Let us
political.
keep the code enforcement under public work, see how they are performing, do the change into the written, do the change for the way it is written, the qualifications, the way that they should carry their job, but just keep them under public, work. This is.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 11. I think you're wrong.
You always think I'm wrong.
I do.
I do
We
understand
enforce it
that.
every time.
I'll second that.
Morris,
Yay.
Musselwhite,
No,
Worley,
Yay.
Fairchild,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
I'll say no.
And
I'll say no. It's fine.
Evans,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes,
motion passed.
and to answer your question, I think you always try in code enforcement or building inspection, you always try to reach out and create a rapport with the person.
she's
So-
gonna use it as a weapon to basically target the people
We don't
she
know
does
that.
not like.
Uh,
For example, her next door neighbor that she
Speculation.
calls have a
I think
criminal
you need to gavel her down.
yeah, you got it. This
Point of
isn't
order.
right. This
We
is not
need-
political.
Yeah, we need to, I make a motion to approve the emergency clause.
I'll second it.
Morris,
Yay.
Musselwhite,
No,
Worley,
Yay.
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yay.
yay,
Yay.
Yay.
That's why I say yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
motion passed.
And we've already discussed item 12 as part of
Yeah,
11, because
amending.
it's just a,
To move the items.
There were two things we did here. One was what we were taking out of the code ordinances, we put over in the inspector ordinances. That was originally the only thing I was gonna look at, and then the mayor reminded me that, we needed to take a look at subsection 40, the qualifications of the inspector.
Right.
When the code was first written, we weren't required to, have our inspector, comply with state statutes on requiring licensing and maintaining licensing, through the state. That got triggered after the 2010 census, and so as long as we were opening these ordinances, thought it might be a good idea to put it in our laws that we had to comply with state law. So those are the only two changes, are to add what we took out of code somewhere else, which would be inspections, and to say that our inspector needs to comply with the law.
I'll make a motion to approve number 12 for the redefining on the building inspector duties.
I'll second.
Morris,
Yay.
Muswig,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Fairchild,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
motion passed.
I'll make a motion to approve the emergency clause.
Second.
Morris,
Yay.
Muswig,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Fairchild,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
motion passed.
Next item, discussion and possible action on an ordinance amending section 5.53.040 of the Warr Acres Municipal Code to establish an annual fee for alarm permits, and that is Judy Meyer.
So I was approached to put in by the police department and Pam this is a service that we have. The police department has to, well, you guys could probably speak to this better than I could. In reality, has to keep track of all the people's information. If there is a false alarm or there is some kind of, they need to contact a homeowner about their alarm, that's a database that they have to keep up. It needs to be renewed every year so that the information is current. Currently, I know Oklahoma City does it. I think they do it manually. And then, I can't remember the other cities, but quite several of them do charge for that service. And it's just in an effort to keep stuff up to date and get them the information they need in a critical time when they have to contact someone.
How are we going to go about making the list?
So,
That's-
let me interject here real quick. We're not talking about doing anything new. What we're talking, it's already been in the ordinance 553.040 that they're doing this. This is about the first time I've heard of an activity like this that we've done, that we haven't charged a fee to help recoup the cost of the taxpayers of the work that's being done on behalf of one taxpayer. Everything else that we do, there's a fee associated with it. It looks like that was just left out when they had drafted the ordinance. So police department's not gonna be doing anything new. There's just gonna be a tiny little bit of revenue to help defray the cost of the staff time spent processing all of this.
Correct.
And it'll be a differential cost, which might be the only one we have in our code, where we charge an initial fee of $30, and then for renewals, it would be $20. You get a business license, you do a renewal, it's the same fee every year. This one would be a reduced fee when you're just getting your annual renewal.
Is this commercial and residential?
I'm sorry?
Is
Will
it
this be-
commercial and residential that you guys are doing it?
They were the same.
Same.
It was the
The
same.
idea of the yearly fee is just so that they will update it every year. And we don't use it just for getting, like, I was talking to Ms. Myers, not just for an alarm or false alarm or anything like that. We use it all the time to find you in case of emergency. We've been notified, go to your house and try to find you, or see if someone's inside. We use those contacts, to try to actually, whether we need to call medical for them, whatever, those are things that it gets used for as well. So the more updated it is, the better tools it gives all of us.
So Jason, is it a commercial and residential?
Yes.
Okay.
So people like me who had an alarm, I'm on the list. How do we notify the people that don't have an alarm anymore to call in, put it in the newsletter, to say, you call the police and say, oh, I don't have an alarm anymore?
Short of a direct mail, that'd be the best way to do it, is to notify them through social media and through the newsletter.
So you have the list of the people that are on the list. We could send a direct mail out to them to say, do you still have an alarm?
We could.
Yeah,
That's only the data that we have. It may not be accurate.
right, yeah.
So what do you, what do you tell people who have had this service for all these years and now they say it's gonna be $20 a year?
I
Can
don't
they
think
get
they'll
out of
mind.
it, say, I'm not gonna pay it? I haven't paid it before, why do I gotta pay it now? I mean,
Anybody that has an alarm is gonna be.
Well, there's a cost if the alarm goes off, the police have to go out or the fire have to go out. So there's a cost to the city in labor.
Do we add this to the like water bill or something? Or how's it, is this whole separate bill that we have?
What is supposed to happen is that you move in, you get an alarm installed, you're required by law to come down and tell the police. And if you don't, then they don't typically, I suspect, write this, but technically it's a violation of the ordinance. If you have an alarm go off and they didn't have a record that you had an alarm, then you violated the code. What this is designed to do is defray the cost of staff time spent processing all that paperwork. You don't have to do it, just like you don't have to charge for a business license, you don't have to charge for permits and inspections. You do it because it's typically you're charging a fee for a service that you're doing for one particular person to help defray the cost so that the taxpayers don't have to pay for it. Right now, the taxpayers have been paying for it, and as everybody on the council is well aware, you haven't been able to give out raises. This isn't going to fix anything, but part of this is also looking at what are we doing that we should have been charging fees for, that we haven't been charging fees for, because it was easy to not charge a fee when revenue was coming in and just pay for whatever you wanted to pay. Now we're not there. And so if we're going to continue to offer this service and keep the police department staffed where it needs to be staffed, they need some of that revenue available to be able to make sure that they can maintain the civilian staff that they've got and a high-level civilian staff so that they can get this stuff right. So what I tell them is they've gotten something good for many years because every other city charges a fee for this. And it's, I mean, honestly, oftentimes what I've seen, it's been more than this fee. But it's just like anything else that they do with the city. There's typically going to be a fee attached. They
is
want
the city gonna send them a bill each year for the annual renewals? Like, how's that?
So
Yeah, that's
that
what
that was something that I wrestled with when I was making this request, and I kept turning to Deputy Chief, and I said, I keep trying to implement it, when in reality, that's their job, to figure that out.
So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me to almost like add that to your water bill or something. Somebody has an alarm and you wanted to add that fee to them, you know, you could put it on there as an added charge on their water bill or whatever.
I don't know, it's an annual thing,
Nope.
so
Yeah.
that would be not a monthly.
Way to do an annual fee, it's a monthly fee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
And
month, yeah.
businesses do an annual mail out, you just mail it out. I know my
Oklahoma
company.
City basically, and Matt can step in with what he knows too, but Oklahoma City basically says, it's your responsibility. And if the officer shows up at your house and you don't have it, a current one, it's $150 fine.
That's good, maybe we
Okay,
should
that's-
add that,
Okay,
I mean, it's
for
pretty-
not having it.
They're pretty harsh on it, actually.
yeah.
I mean, they're pretty strong, you know, that way you do update. And they used to, Judy and I worked on it, they used to have it electronically. And they got rid of that, so I told her, it's okay, if they had problems with it, we may not want to try to go that route at the beginning, because obviously they had problems, there's a reason why.
And typically, if people have an alarm, the police department is gonna know that they have it because that alarm company is gonna want you guys to know that they have an alarm, right? So, okay, so you should probably, the city, or at least the police department, should have a list of the addresses of people that have alarms already, I would think. And we could probably get,
Anyone that's gotten a permit in the past, we can pull that address.
okay.
That's good. And also, should we reach out to local alarm company vendors to advise them that we now charge a fee?
It wouldn't hurt, I mean, I'm speaking on both sides of that.
There's so
I
many
don't know
of
how
them.
you would get it
a lot
out
of
there.
self-help ones.
It does,
I mean, they wouldn't be surprised.
eventually they would know it.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, we charged, we were one of the few, years and years and years ago, I got in trouble with Warr, like 2000, because I didn't know Warr did the door knocking. And then, you know, everyone started
to Jason's point, if they do go out and you have an alarm, even if it's a righteous alarm and you did not have it already registered with us, you could get a $160 ticket already under the existing code.
Do we have that as like a penalty if you're not registered or anything? Is that in there?
5.53, 190. It's already in there that you have to register with us. Not a lot of people do it. And if we find out that you have an alarm that isn't registered, I don't know how many tickets we've actually issued on this, but it's in the code right now. That's a crime that carries a $100 fine plus $60 in costs. And it can result in you being suspended. And ironically, we do charge a reinstatement fee, even though we don't charge a fee to be instated in the first instance.
We're talking,
Escalating fee for every time you get suspended. It's 50, 100, 150, 200.
we're talking really less than $2 a month.
I think so.
You want me? I'll make a motion that we approve item 13, to add the fee for the alarm permits.
I'll second that.
Morris? Yay.
Mossaway?
Yes.
Worley?
Yes.
Fairchild?
Sure, yeah.
Myers?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yay.
Evans?
Yes.
Douglas?
Because I have a
Yes. Do you want to do the emergency clause?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the emergency clause on that item on the agenda, which is number 12, right?
13.
13. 13.
Lucky 13.
I second it.
Morris?
Yay.
Mossaway?
Yes.
Worley?
Yes.
Fairchild?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Douglas?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. I have questions and comments? Start with Ted?
Comments? I got some comments, always. I'll always have comments. Anyway, hey, yeah, the use tax thing, people, if you're watching on YouTube, it's very important. I looked at mine on Amazon to make sure I'm using the full 9-digit code on there. I am, so that's good, Amazon. Any kind of deliveries, I'm thinking maybe even if you do a DoorDash or any kind of food stuff that's delivered to you, remember, when you do the order, put your full address in there so we can get the tax money from that when they come and deliver it. This includes any kind of delivery stuff.
Kroger.
And thanks, yeah, I've seen where you shortened it in the newsletter, and yeah, thank you, man. I think that should be in there all the time. It should just be a permanent, it ought to be, and thank you very much for taking my advice on that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
The other thing is 4th of July is coming up. I hope everybody has a safe 4th of July. Keep all your fingers and toes. And if you can, go watch the fireworks instead of popping them off in the city. I will be out in the woods where I can pop them off, and hopefully I'll still have my digits when I come back and see you next time. But everybody have a safe 4th of July. Anyway, I got, the other thing is, we talked about other stuff. Oh, I want to thank Matt. Thank you, Matt, for the report you gave on the Airbnbs. I plan to look that over, and maybe we can get some action on this pretty soon. That would be great. Thank you for the work you did. That's a lot of work. Thank you so much for what you've done. I really appreciate that. And I wanted to say thank you to the mayor for being our mayor, and thank you to the city council. This is, this like my 4th or 5th meeting now, and yeah, thanks, for the welcome and all that stuff. And I think it's going pretty well, and thanks for all the hard work we do. As mostly all of us are volunteers here, so
That's right.
thank you guys for showing up every time. I mean, that's amazing. Usually I've seen some council meetings in other cities, like hard to get a quorum. I mean, it's like, wow, you barely have enough for a quorum, and we all show up. And I think some of those guys are even paid on some of these other cities. So thanks for everybody and all the work you're doing. And that's pretty much what I got.
Great.
Me? I want to thank Cherokee Hills Christian Church. They did a cleanup for Ward 1 a couple weeks ago, and they just did it out of the kindness of their heart. I told them no painting.
Yeah.
And they did a great job. I mean, our parks are pretty clean, but they went in and filled up the divot holes for the swings and stuff, and filled in some holes and stuff. So they also picked up trash in the area, so I thought it was good. So I have a question for Mike. The light pole that's in front of 7-Eleven, are we doing anything with it?
Yes. I reached out to Crystal Garcia with OG&E, the contact you gave me. Just got back an email today. They were looking in their database to determine if they could find the paperwork of who owns the pole.
Okay.
They referred me back to ODOT. Their record shows that back
7-Eleven, I'm sorry, which 7-Eleven?
7-Eleven
Northwest
on
Highway in
Northwest
MacArthur.
Expressway in MacArthur?
There is a light pole that was hit by a car and it's laying over there in a drainage ditch. And so today's email contained the information to contact ODOT back in the day, so however long ago that was. So now I get to try to find somebody at ODOT to get the original agreement. Vicki wanted me to find the original agreement with whatever mayor it was in the past. So,
Okay.
but according to OG&E, ODOT owns the pole, and we would pay to repair the pole. I know we've repaired 2 poles, one by Zachaby's and one by McDonald's, maybe in the last, time travels quickly, a couple of years. They were in the $6,000 to $8,000 a piece range, so I think they use a subcontractor. So she gave me a quote of somewhere it could be $8,000 to $12,000, depending on how the base is, depending on the damage to the base. So I think they hire an outside contractor. I call it the blank check, but
So in the meantime, do we just leave it sitting there?
I mean,
I guess until we figure it out?
I mean, they could utilize part of the pole to put it back up if it's not damaged, but like the masthead could be bolted back to the pole if the pole bolt's actually sheared off. I guess we'd have to cut it up. We might have a trailer long enough to haul it.
I just wondered if we had an update. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have an incident report from the police that we know who hit it?
No, I was asked by, I think it was Cheryl that asked, or not Cheryl, Crystal that asked me. And we tried to research it. There never was an accident report filed. No one ever called it in.
They got away as fast as they could.
Yeah, somebody hit our street sweeper when we first got it, and they were able to drive off. And so the same thing on these poles. A lot of times the pole will be damaged and they're able to drive off, or there's not a report. Sometimes we've had a report, and they, like our sign at 39th and Ann Arbor, that was taken out and they had no insurance. So what do you do?
Thank you. Besides that, thank you to our fire, police, our public works, and our city hall for all the fine work that you do. We feel very privileged to have you. Thank you.
That's it.
That's it?
Well, the last
I
one
had
was-
some others, but I decided to wrap it up.
The last one was what I was gonna say, but, I will say, since it's June now, and, when you start looking at the budget for the next year, I think we need to change how, the approach that we take to how we do the budget, instead of just, it's the same as last year, and let's just either add or subtract some things. We need to look at what are maybe the goals, like my main goal is getting raises to these people that haven't had raises, and what is it now, 3 years? 2 years? Well, this will be the third if we don't give it to them this year, right? So, but I'm just saying, we should look at what the priorities are first, instead of just, we always give this amount to this department and this amount to this department, without justifying what it actually all entails. And we need to actually be taking care of the rest of the people that are working in the staff for the city, because if they all left, the city would shut down. 42nd and MacArthur, it used to be Flowers by Pat, and now it's this place called Dulces Momentos. If you ever want to, I'm just shouting out because it's going to come up the next part with the economic development, but they've been around for about a month and a half now. They just opened, they serve Hispanic coffees, and they sell pancakes, like breakfast stuff, and they also sell club sandwiches. So it looks like it's a flower shop next to it, but they're sharing the same location. So it's like the flower shop and the door's open, and it opens to their area. So they're really nice people. I went and saw them, talked to them twice. So if you want to support local business, that's a new one that's over there. So that's all I got.
I'm going to list the capital improvement that I keep bringing up. 63rd Street, east of MacArthur, is falling apart. Absolutely coming apart. And if we don't spend some money on it fairly soon, it's going to be so expensive, we'll have to do a full base repair, and all mill and overlay won't touch it. I know Mike did an estimate on it probably a year ago.
Yeah.
And it's gotten worse since then. It was $500,000 then, if I remember right. We're probably looking at more than that now. But if we do maintenance, it's cheaper than waiting for something to fall apart and then try to rebuild it. Because to rebuild that road, you're probably looking at over $1 million. And we've got a chance to do some maintenance and repair and keep it from falling apart. It's right in front of the school. It's the entry into Warr Acres from Oklahoma City. And you can tell when you cross the city line, you can tell the road deteriorates. And it doesn't speak well for us. You can put all the signs up you want welcoming people in, but if the road beats up their car, that's what they remember. So 63rd Street west of MacArthur is also in need of repair, but it's not as bad as that little short section on the east side. So I just wanted to keep bringing that up. We've got some capital improvement money. I don't know that we want to spend that much, but we're saving a little bit by financing out our truck. That's where we were saving a lot of our money for. But we need to look at road improvements. It's been a long time since we did any with the bond. That's really the last time we did road improvements was at the bond issue. So our arterials are in need of repair.
I see a lot of paint gone too. I mean, all up and
Yes.
down MacArthur. I mean, for like 2 miles, a lot of paint.
And if you resurface it, you'll get that
Yeah,
fresh
you get
new
that too.
paint that'll
Yeah.
last for a while. But mainly you get to seal it off and make that water run off of the road instead of going down through the road.
Yeah.
But that was my biggest issue, and I want to thank very much the police that are helping out with the animal control. Animal control is a no-win situation, but it's a dire necessity. Oklahoma City shut theirs down, they got so overloaded. I don't even know if they're back open yet or not, but it's a big problem, and I know that that's a hassle for you guys to deal with, but we appreciate all that effort that you put in trying to keep that moving. And Judy, we appreciate your help on that too.
Thank you.
That's it.
Debbie?
Well, I don't want to say too much, but I am thankful for Public Works and Fire and Police, especially Animal Control. So much going on. I did want to say thank you to my co-counsel, Ida. Thank you for your dialogue and helping us think things through, and I appreciate you. Anyway, thanks for everyone on the council. It's good to work with everyone and work things out for the city. That's it.
Ida?
We have on 42nd and MacArthur, there's 2 electrical poles. One of them is cleaning and have ropes around it in 2 places to hold to the other one. So I'm not sure who owns it. I'm not sure what needs to be done. That's one. The second one, the fancy ones, the iron ones, I think it is on, across the street from 57 in MacArthur. It's either the second or the third one from 58 on MacArthur, on the west side. It's leaning a little bit, so I'm not sure how much. Maybe you should just drive by them.
That's come up, that question's come up before on the leaning poles. OG&E does not straighten the poles.
Even the one that,
Dangerous?
what about the one that is basically holding, they are holding it with rope? Just drive by it.
42nd MacArthur? Yeah, those are usually when they do a utility pole replacement, what happens is the utility company that does the communications, you know, AT&T, Cox, they don't remove their line off the pole, so they'll come right above it, which is about midway, and they'll cut the pole off. And trying to get a contact person with a, well, like our 39th and Ann Arbor, where we had 3 lines tore down by oversized loads and could have caused a bad situation. You can't get them to, I can't get them to do anything. There's no I mean, you can contact people, but we had some poles along MacArthur in the 2016 ice storm, and Rob Carter was my assistant. He worked on it for 6 months, trying to contact OG&E, and we finally got the poles removed. I put in requests to OG&E to have poles removed, and they'll tell me that, well, we're waiting on Cox to move the line over to the new pole. There's no contacts with Cox or cooperation with the cities. Personally, I think it's their responsibility to take care of it, and it all falls back to the city. When you start looking, I gave a report a couple months ago. I just drove around, and within an hour, I had plenty of photos of boxes over sidewalks, lines hanging down, cables. There's not really amateurs that can go up a pole and deal with, you don't want to be up in the upper 7,200 volts and 1,000, 10,000 amps. So there's, it's their jurisdiction. So, I mean, as far as the city's role to fix their problem, it's very frustrating to me. There's almost going to have to be some sort of a state ordinance to hold these people accountable. As a matter of fact, when you go around town, you start seeing, like right by your house, the excavation. It took them a long time to do it. O&G is one of the responsible contractors that come out and take care of business. Other ones, we have one water leak at 58th and MacArthur from Oklahoma City. That's gone on for 5 months. We have one from January 1st at 72nd and Comanche that's still unfixed by Oklahoma City Water. I know they've been overwhelmed with literally hundreds and hundreds of water leaks, but to try to get these utilities to do their job, they hire subcontractors and they go, oh, well, it was a subcontractor. We're not responsible. So I almost, in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, there needs to be a state law and accountability to hold these contractors accountable for coming in and tearing up our right-of-ways and easements. We have individuals call in, oh, my front lawn's tore up. We had one in Twin Lakes, and sure enough, you go out, they trench through their yard, and there's no way they could mow it, and they were older, and you'd have to go in and redress the lawn and do a lot of work. Reach out to the contractors, no response. We have phone numbers and contacts, and so it's a very difficult. I would love to get them fixed. I mean, I can send OG&E requests, and they'll tell me the standard answer. So, I mean, it's a great question.
It's across the street from the police department, in addition to the church there.
They're everywhere. When you start really, it's kind of like you say, see red. You start looking for red.
What scared me is actually
you see
the
it
road
everywhere.
that
I mean,
is-
I see them everywhere. I could spend the whole day going, yeah, there's one there.
Okay, thank you.
So, yes, I share your frustration.
April?
Okay, I don't have a lot to say, but I did attend the New Official Institute, and that was very interesting, long, but very interesting. And then I'm very excited about the poly carts. We had those when we lived in Oklahoma City, so right now my trash cans blow everywhere with all these storms. I live in a street that floods, so I see it kind of like floating down the street sometimes. So, yeah, so I'm excited about having the big poly carts, so that's really all I have.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to police and fire and public works for keeping us safe. And I want to say, because of the form of government that we have as a strong mayor, I'm both the mayor and the manager. I ran to be a manager more than a mayor because I am not a politician. My background is in state and federal government and the public sector in creating policies and procedures called SOPs and creating programs to measure metrics. So I'm trying to learn everything I can about the processes to see if there are more efficient ways of doing things to help the citizens save more money. And I have no hate in my heart for anyone in this world, and I never have. And that's all I have to say. Anybody want to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Warr,
Yay.
Mossaway,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Fairchild,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay, Public Works, call to order. Sorry, I keep bumping this thing. We have a quorum. So, anybody want to pull anything from the consent docket? Or to approve it?
I make a motion to approve the consent docket A through D.
I'll second it.
Morris,
Yay.
Mossaway,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Fairchild,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay, discussion and approval of amendment number 1 and change order number 1 for the Warr Acres 2025 Pine East Lakes, sanitary sewer improvements. I'm gonna let Amanda talk about it.
Hello, good evening. Hopefully we can keep this quick. So we are making great progress on the sanitary sewer improvements line that had the emergency. The sinkhole is fixed. Yay.
Both of them?
The original one where the OG&E light pole was, yep, and then the one underneath the fence.
Between the houses?
Yep.
Yay, great.
That got taken care of first.
Good.
So, yes. And they've actually finished the section of the line that doesn't go under the dam. So next up, they plan to start work on the dam. They've already laid the pipe out, but they can't actually break ground on the dam until we receive the formal OWRB dam construction permit. I've had a lot of fun with that over the past couple of weeks with the dam construction permit. And then the environmental categorical exclusion also from OWRB, which we should receive that. The dam construction permit was approved this morning at OWRB's board meeting. We just have to get the piece of paper. And the categorical exclusion we expect to receive soon also. So I guess I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit to item 7 with SRB reports on all the stuff. So for the sanitary sewer line, there was a bit of a hiccup to get started in that in the plans, we called for what's called DR26 pipe. It's a little bit thicker and it is recommended for embedment depths below 15 feet, which this line is at 11 feet. But we were trying to be more conservative. Unfortunately, at the time that this was awarded, there was an emergency plan and emergency project, and the only pipe that was available from pretty much anywhere immediately was DR35, which is just a little bit thinner, not by much, and it is appropriate for pipes between up to 14.9 feet deep, which again, this pipe, it's at 11 feet deep. So because it was a slightly different pipe and we needed it immediately, it did end up costing an extra $12.31 more per linear foot. So this added 6,900, I think I added an extra 4. $6,945, I think it's supposed to be 40 cents, or no, $6,945 to the contract. So that is like a drop in the bucket to the overall project cost. And then additionally, there was a large tree that is next to one of the homes that is just outside the easement.
I wondered about that.
But it's just outside the easement and its root system is fairly extensive and our trench just went straight through it.
Yeah.
And so there is a very good chance that because of the construction, this tree will die. Sorry, that is my son's bedtime alarm. So we got a quote from the contractor that this large tree will cost $6,700 to remove. Total, these two changes result in an increase to the contract of $16,154, which is less than a 1% increase to the total contract, as is stated there. So it goes from $1,796,497 to $1,812,651.
So the pipe is still 28, though?
It's 27, yes.
27, sorry.
Same diameter pipe.
Okay, same
It's
diameter.
just the
Okay.
thickness is, instead of like this, is this. Just a hair.
So the thinner pipe is more expensive?
Because of access.
Okay. And we're gonna go ahead and have the tree removed even though it's not problematic yet?
It's not We don't have to remove it. It's not removed yet. But there is a very, very good chance it'll die, and it is a large tree. It is over 2 houses. And so if it does die and it's not removed and it causes damage, then this, arguably, the city might be liable.
I
I
was
don't
really
wanna-
concerned about that tree when Judy and Kid and I went and saw it. Yeah, it was right in the middle. I just, yeah.
It's just
Did the
sad for a
residents say
tree.
anything?
What was that?
Did the residents say anything, like they want it removed or don't want it
Yes, they
removed?
did.
They want it removed?
Mm-hmm, they do.
Yeah, I
Just for
think that-
preventative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it in the easement or is it on private property?
It is on private property.
The roots were in the easement.
Yes.
The roots grew into the easement and they plowed through the roots, which is gonna kill the tree.
That's what's gonna cause a problem even later on.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yes, of course.
So you looking for a motion, or is there more discussion?
I'm fine.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 4 on the Public Works agenda.
You should do it. It's your ward.
I'll second it.
That way it's all your ward, yeah.
Morris,
Yay.
Amoswig,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Fairchild,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. I'm gonna let them
Okay.
talk now. I'm gonna get out of the way.
Next
Hey, look,
one
it's
is-
finally your guys' time.
Next one
8
is
o'clock.
discussion and possible action on the MOU with the Pines HOA regarding the cost of the Pines Dam repair.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will start with saying Matt Love, the city attorney, and myself worked up a draft of the MOU that was submitted to the HOA. The HOA attorney did send this back with quite a few changes materially to the agreement. My original comment is, and I'm not wanting to step into Mr. Love's area, but I will say that from an engineering standpoint, there's not anything really significantly that we have an issue with. However, there was a reference, and I'll go back when we go through the segment, there were some references to including HOA engineers' recommendations. I don't know that we're recommending against taking their input. We've read their letter that came from the HOA and the engineer. There's several of those items that were actually covered as part of the negotiation that Amanda has been doing for the last 2 weeks to get the OWRB permit. As she did mention, on Friday, we completed those negotiations. They signed off on it. This morning at their board meeting, they did approve the permit for construction. So there are plan changes that the HOA has not seen that were being developed as of late as of Friday. And so what Amanda and I proposed to Carol with the HOA is we will sit down and kind of go through those. There are a few things that are still in the HOA's engineering letter that we may agree to or may not, but I think we need to come back and recommend that to the mayor as far as some of the particulars. There is also a reference as far as cost-saving measures. We're not opposed to cost-saving measures. There's some existing riprap that's in the gabion baskets that have failed that they're suggesting that might be a cost-saving measure that could be removed and put on HOA property that might be beneficial to both parties. That's just something that Amanda and I will have to do in negotiating a change order. So in all reality, there will be a change order amendment as part of, if you award the contract tonight in the next item, then Amanda and I will have to negotiate a change order amendment based on what the changes are from OWRB, which you will then get to approve. So that will be an up or down based on what we negotiate with the contractor to the item 7 amount, which is $691,493. We don't have that because we had to wait until we got the permit approved. We'll go in, and if you award the contract on item 7, then we'll negotiate the best change order amendment for you and bring that back at the next meeting. The MOU that I received actually did not have track changes on it, so literally you had to just go side by side. So from an engineering standpoint, I'm done. I'm going to highlight a few things, and then I'll let Mr. Love kind of go into more in depth. However, there were some significant changes related to Addendum A. In item 5, it talked about Addendum A and Addendum B. Addendum B being the letter from the HOA, and then it referenced an attachment X, which is partially kind of what we had written. All in all, item 5 needs to be essentially that the city and the HOA are going to agree upon what the OWRB permit says, and whatever we have in a change order amendment with the contractor, that's what item 5 needs to be simplified to. Item 4, we don't have any issue, there should be no issue as far as lien releases and insurance certificates from the contractor naming the HOA as an insured, as an additional insured party, even though the contract is with the city. In item 6, that's where the HOA is accepting responsibility for the final cost, with pay item 15, which is the portion that is 100% their responsibility on the dam repairs. It does say in there if the HOA is able to make cost-saving options available, for example, allowing rocks from the existing spillway gabions to be removed to HOA property rather than hauled off-site. We'll have to just ask the contractor whether that's a savings. So I'm not against recommending that. I'm just saying that is something that's in there. I'm just going to let Mr. Love talk about the escrow payments and how that's all structured. That was changed slightly. There was some changes in how it relates to the excess escrow and that. I think where the bigger issue is item 10 was changed to 11, and so 11 is permanent easement and maintenance responsibility. In the original MOU, we required, and I'm reading from that one, we required that a permanent easement be provided to the city for the existing spillway, and that permanent easement will allow for the entire spillway to be maintained by the city to preserve and protect not only the sanitary sewer, but the spillway in perpetuity. We stated in the draft that the HOA would share in the future maintenance costs of the spillway at a ratio of 75% HOA and 25% city. It's believed that Public Works and the city would do an annual inspection or periodically, and then would come up with what those recommendations for maintenance. The material difference in number 11, which is what was provided by the HOA, is they're maintaining the permanent easement related to where the sanitary sewer crosses the spillway and how it relates to that. They're saying they're going to still grant us the easement to do the construction. However, they're not releasing a permanent easement to the city for the spillway, nor are they giving control of that. They want to maintain control of the spillway from a standpoint of ownership and maintenance. It says that the city would be a party to this, and that the parties are free to suggest maintenance needs to each other or consult on potential future cooperative maintenance or repair projects, but essentially it leaves the spillway control back with the HOA, which has been problematic in that the spillway was allowed to fail. So just going to leave that out there. Again, it's a policy discussion. And there's a few other things that I think Matt would be better to speak to as far as the points on that.
Oh, and the only thing I'd correct there is there took out the permanent spillway with the 75-25 split for anything that needs to be done on the spillway, but what they put in was an expanded easement 25 feet on either side of the center line of the pipe, running the direction of the pipe, and that the city is going to be 100% responsible for all maintenance and maintenance costs for the portion of the spillway and the dam embankment that's within the easement. So that portion of the spillway, 25 feet this way, and I don't think it goes 25 feet the other way, wouldn't be a 75-25 split, it'd be 100% city, and then outside of the 25, we would have no control over, but the HOA would be responsible for 100%. Mark hit most of what I was going to say. The only concerns that I had with it, outside of what Mark's already referenced, was on the escrow. What's this portion of the project cost potentially going to be roughly?
It's, we're awarding the part that's on the dam, so it's a $691,493 total project.
Okay.
But that includes the spillway and the dam, and I think the Cimarron number for the dam is,
The spillway portion is $556,188, and the dam timber wall and the backing behind it is $135,305.
so that second number is 100% the responsibility of the HOA, which is what's driving the HOA.
So the 130-ish?
Yeah,
Okay.
135.
What had been in the original MOU that the city proposed was a $200,000 escrow. And I think at that point in time, we didn't know what the bids were going to be. What the HOA came back with was $50,000. And the part that makes me a little uncomfortable, HOA is agreeing that they're going to be responsible for the cost. What makes me a little uncomfortable is that in the escrow payment section, if it's above 50, which it sounds like it's going to be above 50.
It is above 50.
That there will be a separate contract done between the city and the HOA as to how the HOA is going to put more money into escrow to get up to the amount that's going to end up being the final cost.
And then they're proposing $20,000 down per year.
Well, and essentially, I mean, it's kind of an odd contract because we're going to do a contract that we'll put 50 down, and if we have to put in more than 50, we'll do a separate contract, but that separate contract will not require us to pay any more than 20 per year. What I'd be more comfortable with, especially if we have a better idea of the amount, and frankly, even not knowing the amount, would not be a separate contract, to just have it be part of this, that if it exceeds 50, then whatever that amount is will be this amount per year. Now, I could understand if it was going to be 60,000 and they wanted to, pay that 10,000, 5,000 per year, wanting to do a separate agreement. We have a better idea of what the final cost is going to be. The final number won't be done until the project's done. But I'd prefer to have the number of what the amount that they're going to pay per year to put into the escrow in the agreement and not have it be left open to a separate agreement. But I want to be 100% clear on this. This is not intent by the HOA to say, we've got an out here to not pay you back. They've already agreed in a separate section that they're going to pay us back. It's just, I don't like leaving it open as to the how we pay you back will be addressed by a separate agreement when we could just address it in this agreement. The only other issue I had that Mark hadn't already identified, and it's just a technical constitutional issue, they added a provision in here that the city would indemnify the HOA for any claims regarding the dam or the spillway arising out of work done by city employees, consultants, contractors, or other agents on the project. We can't agree to that for constitutional reasons. What John was bringing up earlier on the lease purchase, we cannot commit ourselves in one fiscal year to an obligation that would extend into a future fiscal year. Indemnification obligations, by their very definition, are contingent obligations. It's an agreement that we will pay money, some uncertain money that could arise in a future fiscal year. We couldn't agree to indemnify them this year unless it was for some certain amount, and we budgeted that amount for this year. So we could say, you could say indemnification for this fiscal year for $100,000, and we have $100,000 appropriated. But once we get into 2026, which claims don't always come up in the same year, there's a 2-year statute of limitations to file a lawsuit. We can't be bound to indemnification into a future year, especially if it's an uncertain amount. And so that's a constitutional issue. It's not a bargaining position issue. There are ample AG opinions and Supreme Court cases that say you can't agree to obligations like this. I don't blame them for asking. If I were on their side, I'd ask too, and it's a pretty standard term that you see in most agreement. It's just not a term that public entities can agree.
But
because of debt limitation.
in effect, by listing the HOA as an additional insured on the certificate of insurance
Yeah,
up
they're
above,
secure, they're security.
there's security for them there. But all in all, though, it gets back into, if we don't have a permanent easement and control over the spillway, we're spending all these funds while they're still paying you back.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big.
Most entities will never allow, if we don't have control of it in perpetuity, we're not gonna spend public funds.
That's the bigger issue. The two that I've highlighted are smaller issues. I have no doubt, especially when we get to closer to a final figure, that we could amend the draft that they sent to just identify how much money is gonna be paid back to the city every year, because we know 50 that they put in there is not gonna be sufficient. We can come to that figure, and it could be the 20, it could be something lower than that. We can take out the indemnification. The bigger issue is gonna be that easement, whether we have an easement for the spillway or whether we don't, whether we're responsible for 100% of the costs of repairs to the spillway, which the way they've structured it is we're 100% responsible for the part within our easement that runs with the sewer line, and they're gonna be responsible for essentially the northern part of it, the top part that flows down. Those are.
Part that failed.
Those are the bigger issues to me, and that's more of an engineering.
And procedurally, how we sit, we're, both parties are in a good position right now, in that if you award on number 7, then we can enter into negotiation with Cimarron Construction on the change order amendment that is associated with the changes that were driven by OWRB. We can entertain some of their concepts that were in their HOA letter, and then we can bring that back as a proposed change order amendment. All of that will be, even though we award to Cimarron, we're gonna delay the notice to proceed until we get A, that change order amendment negotiated per the permit, and B, this MOU actually in a fashion. But tonight, what Mr. Love and I probably need is more concurrence or thoughts on this policy side of the things that we brought up, so.
Which is largely the spillway.
Correct. And the HOA board is here, so I think they're available for.
Yeah, I would like for them to speak if they want to
I'd like to hear
speak.
what they gotta say.
So I'll just step aside.
Hi.
I'm Kelly Fives, I'm the board president, and this is Carol Ellinghaus, and she is basically our dam lady.
I'm the dam lady.
So, Carol, go ahead.
I think you summarized the agreement that we proposed back pretty well. We were dealing with this issue of maintenance on the spillway. I think we also have somewhat of the same issues. We don't believe we can enter into an agreement that we don't have the funding for. So we have $50,000 that we've accumulated in our capital reserve fund up to this point, and we're willing to put that all in. We were calculating what we are able to get within our assessment structure. We've brought up our assessments, pretty much doubled them over the past 5 years, but we are limited by our covenants. What we can do as far as increasing our assessments. That's where the $20,000 per year comes from, is our limitation on what we can do for funding. We are committed to this project. We're trying to find a way that we can do it within the restrictions that we have as an organization within our funding commitments. The maintenance costs, just like you, we have difficulty agreeing to something where we don't know what those costs are in the future. So we're looking to put some structure on that, whether it's what our proposal was, that we just say we will maintain the upper and lower part of the spillway. The city maintains the portion of the spillway that's actually crossed by the sewer line. That was a proposal. There's other proposals on ways that we can do it that address our concern of knowing what our expenditures are, having just this blanket nebulous out there paying 75% of some amount we don't know what it is difficult. So we made a proposal. I suppose we could come up with something else. I think you understand the problem. As far as the working out the design, I think we're pretty close on that, just working out some of the details of the change orders. There doesn't seem to be big issues there on how we're progressing now. The design across the dam has come a long way to address the concerns. Is there something else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
I've got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a little concerned about how you're planning to pay for maintenance on the spillway if you can't pay the bill to do the maintenance right now.
We do have a set-aside maintenance fund. We maintain the lands that we own. We have a huge greenbelt area there, so we do have maintenance funds with that. Part of what would go into maintenance of the spillway would be incorporated into the kind of maintenance that we do for these open space areas that we have. So we do have a maintenance budget. The capital reserve fund is something that was just created 5 years ago. We got some new board members who came on and said, we've got to beef this up here. We know we've got 2 dams. We know they need some capital improvements. We've got to get this going. And we did make changes in our assessment structure there to really increase just so that we could do these capital improvements. But I think the kind of maintenance activities that would need to be done both for the spillway and the upper edge of the dam can be covered within our maintenance budget.
What is your maintenance budget annually?
Our total assessments now are what, about $475 per household per year. So we've just entered into a new contract for the mowing, which actually saved us a little bit of money. Do you want to?
So as far, what was your question again?
What is the amount annually for your maintenance budget total that you're working under right now?
I think with the mowing and the tree trimming and the other maintenance, it's probably around $22,000 a year.
Well, and I'd like to add one thing. I know that there's probably a lot of concern about, because we've been accused of letting this dam fail, and that we didn't maintain it. But I would like to say most of the people who looked at it felt that the dam was designed to fail, that it was, the way it was designed was not going to last, and that sewer pipe running across our dam did not help it at all. So with this new design and putting all this money into it, I don't think that we're going to have the same issue because it's being designed correctly. So, if there is concern about how we're going to let it fail in the future, I don't. It's not the same. We're not the same people, for one, and it's not being designed by it's not piecemealed together because nobody had money to put it together in 2009, was it?
Right. The previous spillway was just this rock gabion kind of thing that was never going to be capable of handling the kind of velocities and flows that came over that. Actually, I'm kind of surprised it lasted as long as it did. But it was not a failure due to lack of maintenance. It was a failure due to inadequate design for that kind of an application. That's part of why we have been kind of particular about the design of this, is because we want something that lasts. We don't want to do the kind of back of the envelope thing that was done in 2009. That's not good for the sewer line potential failure, but it's also not good for the Pines residents who live downstream of that dam to worry about a failure. We want to do it right this time, and I think we are. This design is a market improvement over what was done before. It's not this back of the envelope thing that was done with whatever leftover funds they had.
So it's not that you don't know that it won't need everything needs maintenance.
Right.
So it's just that this may not need as much maintenance as the previous dam needed.
Yes, it won't need that huge level of maintenance that probably wouldn't have even been effective at stopping the failure to begin with. So I think we'll be in a much better spot after this work is done.
I don't think anybody else had any other questions. I wanted you guys to speak, to
Yeah.
say your
Definitely.
piece on it, so I appreciate it.
I remember there's 81 houses, right, and how many duplexes, like 26 or?
There's, yeah, I think
115 total.
115, I think about
115,
26 or
yeah,
28
okay.
that are duplexes.
Yeah. And that's times $475 a year for each.
Well, the duplexes don't pay $475. They pay
Probably half.
It's a weird formula. It's just under 300, I think,
Oh,
for the
okay,
duplexes.
okay.
So. our
Is your
assess-
maintenance fund separate from the $50,000 fund?
The $50,000 is what we have accumulated over the past 4 years within the capital reserve fund, knowing that we
Capital
had.
reserve?
We've known that there's an issue with the dam. We started accumulating the capital reserve fund and started seeking out any kind of funding source that we could and trying to deal with this problem. It coalesced, I guess, with the need to replace this sewer line. But we have been working for 4 or 5 years to try to come up with a way to address the needs of this dam. So that's why we established the capital reserve fund and started accumulating money.
You have two different funds then, the maintenance fund and the capital reserve fund. So you got 20 in one and 50 in the other.
Right. The
Okay.
50 has been accumulated over a period of years. The maintenance fund is intended to be ongoing annual, pulling from the annual dues expended that year.
Okay.
So when you had in there that the repayment to the escrow would be up to 20 grand, is that eating into the maintenance fund? Or is that
The
separate?
20 grand is what we've been able to accumulate into the capital reserve fund every year.
Okay.
18 to 20
Okay.
grand, so that's in addition.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't robbing Peter to pay Paul here, that, you
Right.
know, what you're paying to
We
pay
have
back the
been
cost of the
seeing
construction wasn't going to prevent you from
The
accumulating
dam
money to.
improvements as capital, and our maintenance fund for everything from, hopefully, no ice storms with tree removal from that, but tree maintenance along the green belt, mowing of the green belt, water quality issues with the lake. You know, we have to do a lot to keep the nasty green growing stuff out of there, keep the lakes viable. Other maintenance, you know, the little cul-de-sac areas around the neighborhood that need to be mowed and maintained, things like that.
But they are separate.
I'm sorry.
They are separate, just like.
Okay, yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure I heard 20 and 20, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't the same 20.
Yeah.
We've thought it out.
Okay, I figured as much, but never make assumptions, so.
So before we vote on this, I guess, I don't have questions for you, I think. Does anybody else have questions for them? Because I don't like standing forever, like, you know, if you guys don't have to stand there.
Kelly, thank you for talking to me on the phone and stuff.
Yeah.
As your,
Thank you for
the
calling.
Ward one of the representatives.
appreciate it.
Thank you, call us anytime you have anything.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Emma.
But before we vote on this, I don't feel comfortable voting on something that there's all these changes and we don't know if it's gonna be that change or this change. I don't wanna vote on something unless I know the final, this is what it is.
No ambiguity,
And, because then the next meeting, we have a change, and then we misunderstood what was presented or what was changed. I'd rather just have a clean copy of this is what the MOU is, and this is what we're voting on. I
Table
don't-
this again or something, or is that what you're
Well, I don't want to go,
suggesting,
I don't think we should go fast with this. If you just got it Friday or today,
Yeah,
it
he's
got
got the
approved,
permit.
I
Yeah,
don't see how
yeah.
we can
I-
possibly do this tonight.
I think what we're seeking here, the mayor and Matt and I, is just some policy guidance, you know, at this point from where you're at. I think right now, like with what we've clarified, they're looking at probably at $20,000 a year. That would be probably 7 years would be the term,
I mean, you're talking about 130,
130.
yeah, and so 50 is down, you're looking at another 80 to potentially 90.
It was 4.2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from my standpoint, I am not comfortable, I'm comfortable with the agreement that they're agreeing they owe the money. I'm not comfortable with doing a separate agreement that would do the payback. Let's just figure out what that annual amount is and put it in the contract. The indemnification, I mean, we can sign it, it's unenforceable. The bigger concern is that new paragraph 11, the spillway, and I do also have a concern about what does it mean that the city's gonna be 100% responsible for all maintenance within the expanded easement? Does that include mowing? You know, just the routine mowing? Because the way that we had it worded was more focused on to preserve the sewer line. I want to make sure that we define what, are we taking on every bit of maintenance for the part that's within the easement, or just maintenance that we, I mean, the idea behind the original proposal was if there's something that needs to be done to maintain it, to make sure it doesn't fail, it gets done. I want to make sure that with the new language, it's not, we can do what we need to do at our 100% cost to preserve our sewer line, but that's not more expensive to you also mow.
And I can probably.
Because it's not going to be our property. I'm not mowing the property unless it's my property.
We could probably sit down with Mike in Public Works and Pam in Finance and maybe come up with, because when you build the new concrete spillway, that's gonna function a lot differently. We can maybe come up with what potentially the city's cost would be to inspect it, look at it, do some minor maintenance on that. What does that potentially look like? And then we can maybe define that a little bit better so they know. Because I think it's gonna be a minimal number to do it, but if you've got cracks or something like that, you need to take care of that right away. So we could probably work up what that potential short-term 5 to 10 years, what that annual maintenance number would be, because then we could then get something closer to the agreement where there's there's just got to be some control over this spillway. If we're building the whole thing until either you get paid back the money or have some kind of oversight on what that maintenance is, I would be hesitant to like recommend that you could just turn 100%, other than the part where the maybe contractually, money-wise, we could agree to split it that way, but not, is it gonna be the city is gonna make sure it looks correct for the next 5 years or something like that, so.
I'd like to make a motion, we table this till next month, until I get a final MOU that has all those questions answered. Because like I said, I'm not gonna vote on something one way and then it's changed after we've already voted on it, so.
And you should definitely table it because we can't vote on it tonight. The only thing I'm really going to ask Mark, do you have the guidance you need from the council to know what direction to move on the language?
He's looking at us all.
Well,
No, I agree with
Yeah.
you, though. If the city has ownership of it, then we're in charge of the maintenance and the upkeep. If we're not, then it's up to the HOA to do the maintenance and the inspections and everything else. But that needs to be in the MOU. I'm not just gonna say, well, that's gonna eventually be in there. I would like to see that in
Yeah.
there. Either way, I don't
And
mind.
I think
I don't
the-
mind
And
it.
then, and I think like with what Matt proposes changes, I think you're all fundamentally in agreement with those.
Yeah, I think so.
In that we trust.
Can we,
Well, and look, on most of this, I'm looking at Mark going, well, what does this mean?
Yeah.
so is this down to the maintenance stuff that now that we want to table, or?
It's what does it mean? And I mean, what Mark was trying to do with the original MOU was admittedly give the city a degree of control that would ensure if this thing needs work done in the future, we can ensure it gets done and there's already cost sharing built into it. And I understand where they're coming from, that you want us to agree to 75 cents on the dollar of something we don't know when or how much it's
Yeah.
gonna be. I fully understand where they're coming from on that. You know, I want to make sure we understand if we go the route of what they proposed, what does it mean to maintain it? Is that just, is that all maintenance, or is that just maintenance that's necessary to preserve the line? There are some of those things that need to be clarified, but from a fundamental standpoint, I guess maybe one way to put it is, do you want this MOU to have teeth in it, for lack of a better way to put it, to ensure that if there are future issues with the spillway, we don't have to come back and do another MOU? Or do you want to have to just address it in the future through a future MOU if we have to do a project like this 10, 20, 30 years down the road, where we figure out the cost sharing at that point? I mean, what Mark drafted was, I think the intent behind it was to try and head off having to do something like that.
Right, it would give the city in perpetuity control over the spillway, which is inherently what is your risk associated with the sanitary sewer. Ideally, I get it. We don't need a sewer line in the middle of an
Yeah.
earthen dam, but
That's
we're
the-
here where we're at.
That's the thing, is
So then the issue is, does the city need to have like Matt said, a little bit more teeth into it
Yeah.
in perpetuity? Because ultimately, if there's a violation, if there's a failure, then the DEQ is gonna fine the city of Warr Acres and the ratepayers, not necessarily the HOA members, okay? So, not to try to put something onerous on the HOA on what the maintenance is. Yes, I will agree, the maintenance costs in the short term of a brand-new concrete spillway are gonna be minimal. But do we give up 100% or most of the control to the HOA again when the city is really taking on the risk that
That's
we
a good,
have?
that's a good question, yeah, for liable,
Liability.
and what is our liability
Yeah,
for paying for it?
liability,
Are we
yeah.
liable for, if we pay for it, does that make us more liable?
Honestly, the bigger liability is, and it's not just civil liability, it's also reputational liability. If 30 years from now, we're having a conversation of the spillway failing and it killing the sewer line, 90% of Warr Acres loses sewer. And there is not an alternative.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
okay.
the line that goes
Yeah,
to
the
the,
main trunk there, yeah.
yes, so,
You could probably still flush your toilet from these guys on down. All the stuff they're flushing is flowing through this point.
See,
And
I
there's
got,
not
I
an
actually have
alternative to
personal interest in
reroute.
this, because I live on Lake 11 down from it. So if that dam fails, my house could get
Yeah.
destroyed.
At the same time, nobody
I
can access
think
those
we-
lakes from the residents of Warr Acres. No other people can access it.
It's private, it's private property.
It is a private property.
It's
so
private property with a public improvement going through it. That's a
there is no
vital public improvement.
Yesterday I went over there, it was kid who basically walked me all the way there. You cannot use anything. There is signs around that there is even a sign that says you cannot be there if you are not accompanied by one of the HOA members. Because I went there, that was not yesterday, that was like a while back. I went there trying to find out where is that place, and I couldn't even reach it. So,
in reality, the
Ward 3 and 2 and 1.
the Warr Acres ratepayers for sanitary sewer are ultimately going to be the ones that will bear the risk if anything were to occur. So then do we want to give you the ability to have that kind of control over the most integral part of the dam, which is the spillway? Yes, the dam is important. If the whole dam fails, but we can't take on the entire dam. But the spillway is the most critical because that's where our sewer line is crossing. And that's where you would have, if that fails, then you'll have the potential for the violation of the overflow. If something else is failing on the dam, it's still considered that it's still a high hazard dam, and so they have to have annual inspections. Those are public record. The city can always monitor it. You can find out what's going on with regard to the dam itself. It's just, what's the risk 20 years or 30 years down the line to the city and the ratepayers? That you're benefiting from federal and ARPA funds right now, you're benefiting from OWRD, but yet the ratepayers are paying that money. So I think maybe what I've heard from them is they viewed the maintenance as being maybe an unknown or an onerous type thing. We're not trying to do that. We're just trying to protect the interests of the city as well. So
Needless to say, there's more work to be done.
Yeah.
And I guess the question to you all, is it a deal breaker for us paying for this to get repaid if we don't have that kind of control over the spillway to ensure that the spillway doesn't fail in the future? Because, I mean, that's kind of the threshold issue.
It is for me.
That's probably the biggest policy choice that we probably need clarification. Matt and I can do all the cleanup work. We just need to know, policy-wise, do you want to control, at least through the term of the payout, or at least at some level in the future, the maintenance of the spillway?
Yeah, see, I'd even before the city has control of that spillway until it's paid off. Then the ownership would go back to the HOA. And then somehow tie the repairs and the maintenance goes to whoever owns it. So if we own it until it's paid back, then we pay all the repairs and the maintenance. But then once the HOA would take it over, once they paid it back to the city, they would be 100% control of it, but they'd also have 100% of the repairs and stuff to maintain it.
Except we still have the liability.
We might still want that 20,
we're always gonna have
75%?
Well, there's a portion where you're always gonna have, they're still asking for a percentage where the sewer line crosses, whatever maintenance responsibility, they're still asking for that percentage from the city.
Right.
You just don't have.
Well, it's not a
100.
percentage.
Huh?
They're not asking for a percentage. They're asking for the city to take all maintenance responsibility for the 50-foot easement.
For the 50-foot.
And that's one thing that makes me uncomfortable is, as I read this, the argument would be they don't even have to mow it. And that we have to do everything with the dam within that 50 feet. And it'd be a little bit less than 50 feet because there's not 25 feet at every part to the south or southeast of it. In that part, I have no doubt that we can deal with what that means. What I was trying to focus the council on was what Mark was asking for was not ownership of the spillway, but an easement across it with the teeth that if something needs to be done, we can say it needs to be done, 75-25 costs there, split on it. And I understand where you guys are coming from, that's a completely unknown, uncertain amount of money in the future. And so what I was trying to sort of tease the council into giving Mark feedback is they don't want to have that uncertain liability in the future. What we'd gone to them with was we want that certainty, and that appears to be the major sticking point. So is that a major sticking point for you guys? Because if it's not, then I know where I would go from here, and I can work with Mark to figure out how we get that finished up. If that is a sticking point for you, then we need to know. Otherwise, we might bring something back next month that you don't want. So, I mean, that's...
Well, just like they addressed, the maintenance costs for the next 5 years should be very minimal.
Minimal.
Because it's brand new.
Yeah.
But after that 5 years, it's going to progressively get more expensive for repairs that are identified. The question is, who's going to identify those repairs that are needed, and then who's going to make sure they get done? And I think that's the question, is do we have the legal right to make sure the repairs get done in a timely manner? And I think that's what needs to be addressed, because if it's not done in a timely manner, it'll just cause more damage. So, and to protect our sewer pipe, we're gonna want to make sure that those inspections are done. Do you think the OWRB inspections for the dam would identify any deficiencies in that spillway?
So, and I'll defer to you, but as a high hazard or high risk dam, it's required to have an annual inspection. They look at the dam. The spillway is an integral part of it, and so they will require the inspection of the spillway as well, especially because it goes between two lakes. So there will be an annual OWRD inspection.
Can we do like, I don't care for their inspection, can we as a city of 4 acres have whoever is the city engineer go there, who is specialized in that, do their inspection, have an agreement with the HOA, sign papers that they have to be doing the maintenance that our inspector will put in writing with all the details within such and such time? Is that something we can put in writing and they will be okay with it?
So essentially, the way that it had been drafted, kind of yes, kind of no. The way it had been drafted by Mark was we would decide what needed to be done, and it would get done, and they would pay us back 75% of the cost. What they've drafted, essentially, if what needed to be repaired in the spillway was within that 25 by 25 easement, we do it, and it's 100% on us. If it's to the higher part of it, where the water actually would be spilling in, it would be on their side, and there would be no obligation to do anything. And that's maybe another way to put it. Is it going to be a deal breaker for you all if, whether it's our inspector, because I know what they're going to say, which is if your city engineer is the one that's saying it, we want a voice on that too. We want to get our own engineer to look at it, at least have an OWRB. It's none of our engineers looking at it. It's a third party that's looking at it. But the real question is, do you want the teeth in the agreement, and is it a deal breaker for the agreement if there's not the ability for the city to compel the HOA, and it's really going to be, as John said, not the first 5 years. Correct. Probably looking at 10 plus years down the road as there starts to become maintenance costs that have to be incurred for the city to have an ability to force them to have it done or to not be able to force it. Because, I mean, essentially the reality we've been living under is, well, right now, we, without their permission, couldn't even go inspect outside of our easement because we don't have a right to be outside of our easement on the dam. We can tell them what we see, but we don't have the ability to force anything. The way it had been drafted, we would have had the ability to force it, and I understand where they're coming from, not wanting that, because we'd essentially be saying, you have to do this, and we're going to go ahead and do it, pay for it, and you have to pay us back 75%. Well, they don't know when that's going to be, how much it's going to be, whether they're going to have the funding to be able to do it. I mean, I understand their position and where they're coming from. What we need to know from you all is if a sticking point for them is the city having the ability to force them to pay money in the future without knowing what it is, and et cetera, is that going to be a deal breaker on moving forward on this? Because if it is, then we know what the position is, and they'll know too, or is it not? Because if it's not, either way, we know what we go back with. But I don't feel comfortable right now that I know whether that's going to be a deal breaker for you.
If it's helpful, the way we were looking at it was somewhat breaking it into two issues. Decision-making authority over jurisdictional authority, I guess, over what part of the dam versus payment, and trying to get some balance for that. If you've got total decision-making authority over what gets done in this particular area of the dam, well, that kind of would bring with it a responsibility for paying for whatever is coming out of those decisions. The proposal we made back was based around the pipeline. So it was 25 feet on either side of the pipeline as it goes across the dam, including through the spillway, but across the face of the dam, giving full authority to the city to decide what needed to be done within that corridor and how it was done. But that's where the payment would be. we would be accepting full decision-making authority, probably as dictated by OWRB on specifics of it for the rest of it, as well as the financial obligation for maintaining the rest of it. That was just one way to split it. If we wanted to do something different, such as the city having the full jurisdiction authority, decision-making authority over what maintenance needed to be done on the spillway, from top to bottom, it seems to us that that should come with the financial obligation to cover whatever the city is deciding needed to be done in that corridor. The monetary amount that we're paying here is reimbursement for the $130,000 to repair the upper part of the dam. That money is not really going into the spillway, so the city is paying for these spillway improvements, top to bottom. The kind of maintenance that would be done, I'm envisioning is basically concrete maintenance.
Yeah, inspection, and then it would be joints, crack sealing, and
right.
maybe undermining or erosion.
Possible erosion.
Prompt and timely type maintenance.
The kind of stuff that entities that are used to, say, maintaining streets would be very familiar with and have the equipment and capability to do. Outside of that corridor, the maintenance of the embankment, the vegetation maintenance, that's something that we do a lot. Keeping the proper slope on the dam could be a concern along the sewer line. Let's say if there's settlement, if things did not get compacted in some area the way they should through the construction or something like that. That's why we were proposing this corridor along the line of the dam that the city could then maintain if there was a settlement over the pipeline. The city could come back in and reestablish the proper slope on the embankment of the dam. If we wanted to talk about some other way to break this up, we're open to that, but we were looking for a balance between who's got the say-so on what gets done in this area versus who's bearing the cost. And I think that's what we would be keeping in mind through any proposal that's made on how we divvy this up.
I wouldn't mind sharing the decision-making process on the spillway if you were paying for it. But you're not paying for any of it. So I don't think that you should really have any say over it, even though
Exactly.
it's on your property. But we're paying for the whole thing and getting nothing out of it other than just protecting our pipe.
I would need to
There is
talk
a
with the
pipe
rest
in
of the
every
board,
backyard
but-
in Warr Acres. Every house in Warr Acres have a pipe, some kind of plumbing or sewer line. And you know what? If we need to basically go in there, the owners of those houses, they don't ask us for compromising or giving them money back because we need to maintain that pipe.
If the city wants
You need to be very flexible, honestly.
take the spillway, have the easement the full
We
length of the
have.
spillway and maintain the spillway, I think we're probably going to be okay with that.
I think that you've got enough input right now to be able to negotiate that. You guys can work that out as details, but, I mean, I don't know where you guys stand on this, but me personally, I think the city should have the right to make sure it's done. And again, we're not talking the first 5 years, really. We're talking about 5 to 20 years. That time frame. That's when the maintenance is gonna start.
Well, like I said, I have a personal interest in this. I live downstream from that, so I'd like to see it fixed, personally. But, that's I got, probably conflicting interests, but I'm not gonna recuse myself unless I'm forced to, so don't expect me.
You've got a very personal
I
interest.
got a very
in-
personal interest in having this done.
They want to flush their toilets in 20 minutes.
We've got a personal interest too.
Yeah, so.
I think with that comment, I think that helps. I think hearing from you guys, Ultimately, yes, the city is bearing the cost of this spillway, and so if giving up, if conceding the maintenance of the spillway is agreeable, then maybe that's what we'll kind of work towards that, so, yeah.
As I say,
Can that get
it's a
worked out?
compromise, and we all understand
Yeah.
that, so that's
As long
something
as-
better done
as
on
long
a
as
small
we don't-
group.
What we don't want to do is like what Matt was saying, is get into the business of mowing and doing a bunch of things
Yeah.
on the dam, so.
Okay.
Is that something we can work out in the next, before the next meeting?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I fully believe that, you know, the steps are Amanda and I will work on, assuming on the next item you award it, then we'll work on the change order amendment, we'll get that worked out, we'll work out the design discussion. We will then, Matt and I will work out with the attorney, the details. You'll have at next council, you'll have the MOU plus the change order amendment that fits the permit, so.
Do you want to table that?
Oh, we've already tabled, we got a motion and a second already, we just
I
have
don't
to
think
vote.
you haven't voted on it. You got
And
the
not
motion.
to
We haven't voted,
belabor
right, we
this,
haven't
but we
voted.
appreciate getting the policy direction that you wanted to
I
get.
motioned it, and I got
We have a
seconded.
motion.
To table it till next month.
Motion to table?
Yep.
Yay.
Thank you guys for coming out. Again, yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion passed to table till next month.
Well, and that ties into the next item.
Right.
Uh,
So do we even talk about this, or do we just table this till next
Yeah,
month?
I think, yeah.
No.
Please don't table it. Okay, so, yes, bringing this back from last month, we had the bid opening for the dam and spillway, and as we've been discussing, the spillway cost itself was $556,188. The dam portion was $135,305 for a total cost of $691,493, with the low bidder being Cimarron Construction Company. So we had the bid opening on May 9th, and according to state statutes, we have to award it or reject it within a certain period of time, and we are at the end of that time. So what I would like for you to do is to make a motion to conditionally approve this contract based on accepting the MOU, ideally in the future, so that it is an acceptance and we can award it, but knowing that the work
It's
and
not,
notice.
it's not final until
It's
everything
not.
gets signed,
Exactly.
but this at least satisfies the statutory.
Yeah.
Yes, we will not issue the notice to proceed until the MOU has been approved. No construction work will begin until the MOU has been approved, but the contract will be conditionally awarded.
So what happens if you never agree to the MOU? Let's say it goes on for 6 months. We're gonna have to pay these people something, because they're gonna be like, we can be doing other work, but we're sitting here waiting on an MOU. I mean, are we on the hook for this $691, whether we agree with them or not? Let's say they come back and say, we want to control all of it like they presented. And, you know, you're going to have people here that are not going to vote for that.
So if the MOU does not end up getting approved, then I believe there are ways to let Cimarron know this project is not moving forward. And we would probably have to rebid the project at that point.
Yeah.
But no, if it's conditionally approved, my understanding is that it would not, that Warr Acres would not be on the hook for paying for this work.
How long is this bid good for? Like, say it takes 3 months are they still going to say okay? Or are they going to say, no, we're going to have to rebid it because you took 3 months to get around to getting this MOU signed?
If it takes 3 months to get the MOU signed, I would anticipate having something for you next month on the MOU. Whether you're gonna like it or not is gonna be another question, but Cimarron could back out since it's not they don't have a final binding approval.
They could, we could also negotiate a change order and find out if prices have increased since then. And depending on how much the change order would be, we would bring it to you all to see if that is acceptable.
Technically, depending on how much the change order was, it could have to be rebid anyways, but it probably wouldn't be that much.
Right.
There's a percentage threshold that if it goes above, then you can't do it as a change order, but
Anybody have any questions?
Well, the initial MOU was, this was the note of contention the first time. And so they didn't want to bend at all.
I'll tell you where it's gonna end up, which is us not owning, but having a permanent easement across that spillway and being responsible for the cost.
Which is what it should be, right?
Well, it was gonna be, they would be responsible for 75% of the cost on the spillway. It's probably gonna end up being us just
If we own the
effectively
easement,
owning the
right,
spillway.
if we own the easement, we'll pay all of
And
it.
in return, they have everything else. And we don't need additional easement because we already have an easement for the sewer line. So we didn't need this, this 25-25 on either side was a negotiating tool. So that's what the MOU is gonna probably look like, and we pretty well heard it here tonight, that if we'll take on the spillway, not ownership, but the easement and the responsibility for the maintenance costs, which also means that we get to control and get the maintenance done early before it becomes costly.
Mike will be in charge of that.
Then I think.
You'll get to be in charge of that
I bet we could have a
easement.
special meeting next week and have it done.
I said you'll get to be in charge of that
Well,
easement.
it's subject to all the other stuff they have to negotiate on the technical side.
But you do have a good price on this bid right now, so that's one positive.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve awarding the whole item 6 for $691,493.
Second.
Conditional upon the
Conditional on the MOU.
MOU.
Additional.
Which is in the
Right.
language, so technically
it's
the
in
motion's
there,
still
yeah.
good.
Morris?
Yay.
Mossway?
Yes.
Worley?
Yes.
Fairchild?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Douglas?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. we got
Thank you very
Amanda-
much.
Amanda's report,
So,
so.
for the most part, I do not have anything additional to add besides what is already in the engineering report. I will say, though, that on the sanitary sewer portion of this whole project, there will be a second change order for you all to hopefully approve next month. Because in those negotiations with the OWRB, and also as recommended by Myers via the Pines homeowners, is that we needed to include something in the dam around the line, pipeline, to prevent erosion around the line. So we have what's called basically a bunch of sand, really, really good specialized sand that will
Magic
be.
sand.
It's the good stuff.
Yep, it is good stuff. ASTM C33 sand with very specific dimensions that will intercept flow coming through the dam, because all earthen dams have some amount of flow that's just part of it. Some water comes through, and so this will keep the water flowing down to where it's supposed to go instead of flowing along the pipeline. And so that change order will come up for approval next month as a heads up. And I will unfortunately not be here to answer any questions because I have a family vacation scheduled for that week. So if you have any questions about it
Mark's on call.
now. Mark will be here. The initial estimate from the contractor, though, is, I think he said $34,000 to do that. There will also that also includes like additional excavation to install this sand filter. So it's not just the sand, it's also the excavation and the labor to perform the work. Additionally, on the second change order, there is a little bit of driveway repair. One of the properties that has the line going through it, we cut off a corner and there's of their nice exposed rock aggregate driveway. And it was nearly impossible to be able to match that exposed rock. So instead, we replaced the front section of his driveway with just regular gray concrete instead of attempting to match that exposed rock.
And they were fine with that, or did they want?
Yeah, I was like, I don't have to live with it. Ask the homeowner what they want.
Right.
And so we could have attempted to match it, and he said, no, don't, just please replace across the front.
And you're talking about the right-of-way, is where the driveway portion that you replaced.
So it sounds like there was a piece within the driveway.
Right.
If we just paved that, it would look really
Well, no,
weird.
but it's in the right-of-way, so we have the right to put anything in there we want to. It's public right-of-way.
Right, I think what I'm hearing her say is that there was a piece within the right-of-way, and rather than try to more costly return that to the way it was, he's agreeable to just replacing the whole front of the driveway, including the part out of the right-of-way.
Yes.
To make it look all consistent and not as expensive to fix.
Yes. So that will also be on the second change order.
I think the mayor should send that person a letter too, thanking them.
To who?
To thank that person at the homeowner, because I know it's an easement,
Yeah.
you know, and like they should know, like we could tear it up, but they could have said, you know what, we want to match all the way across.
Yeah.
I mean,
Doesn't
it'd
mean
just
you
be,
did it.
right, but I mean, it would be nice, like,
Yeah, yeah.
like we were talking about earlier, like, you know, the city can say thank you for
I
stuff.
want a
and-
brand new street out in front of my house, but I'm not getting it.
You live at 63rd? That's why he's pushing 63rd,
No, I
right?
don't- that,
You live over by me, yeah, I know where you live.
long way away from there.
That's a good idea.
I want to thank you guys for all your work on all the sewer stuff and with the MOU.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah,
glad
that's a lot of work.
Yeah, good luck with the work with them, really.
I'm glad the technical stuff is getting sorted out. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody want to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second it. Yay.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, one more meeting. Call to order the Economic Development Authority meeting, June 17th, 2025. Call to order, we have a quorum. Anybody have any comment about the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket?
Second it.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, discussion and possible action on paying motion construction, $25,000 per section 3.2 of the parks at MacArthur Development Project Assistance Agreement, approved by the WAEDA on May 17th, 2022.
What are they doing?
That was a while back. We,
That was the Josephine building.
yeah, and there's a problem, I think,
Oh.
with that.
What's wrong with?
Well, they said that they were gonna have 12 residential units ranging from 990 square feet to 1,100 square feet, and approximately 4,200 square feet of retail space. And then they changed it to 16 apartments, I think, and reduced the amount of retail space. So this,
Right, they've changed it from what we originally told them
Yeah.
they said they were gonna
so
do.
that's not even the same agreement. Am I right, Matt?
Yeah, but we made the agreement for additional landscaping out front, wasn't it? Isn't that what our agreement was for?
It was for pocket parks.
Yeah, they're supposed to be little,
Pocket parks. I know we already gave them 25,000, which I think was to cover that.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah.
I also
Little
wanted to say,
lanes.
they said there wasn't gonna be a lot of lighting, and it's just the brightest thing in the neighborhood.
Oh, and it is?
It is. My backyard
Uh,
knows it. It's so
I
bright.
see it from your house.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, they've got the bright lights that go up like bars
Yeah.
on the sides. There's a bunch of them all around.
Driven by at night.
Instead of down lights, they're up lights.
They're out. They're like
Oh,
You know,
So instead of just paying these people, should we have them at the next meeting to talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah, we
this?
should.
Because all I'm seeing is this item, and I'm not really, like,
yeah.
I would like to
anything
know
about
what
it.
this $25,000 is gonna do.
I'm not familiar with the project, so if we can receive something about the project itself that was approved, so, or the date it was approved, so we can go back and watch
Well, I
the
mean,
video.
they listed the date it was
Right.
approved right here. It's May
I remember
7th.
when we did it.
2022, but that was 3 years ago.
that's when I started coming to the
Interesting how many
council.
people want to be helpful.
If they honored their side, then we're obliged to honor our side, but it sounds like they made some changes, so I think we should hear.
They did.
Yeah, it was
make
supposed to be like
two
all apartments all the way around and then stores all the way around the one floor. Like one floor was business and the other floor was
No, they were gonna have some
apartments.
ADA apartments at the back of the
And-
first floor.
but then they
because that's-
kept-
They didn't wanna put an elevator.
And they kept changing what they were gonna do, and now they keep lowering the amount of businesses they're
Right,
putting in there.
they
so,
lowered the amount of retail space.
yeah.
There's
Yeah.
2 shops in there now, a barber and a Japanese tea place.
Tea, yeah.
So there's one retail tea.
But when he came in
That's
and
Barber
presented it,
shop's pretty busy.
when he came in and presented, he was talking about,
That's
he was,
that.
he was gonna put a restaurant in there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
major
that's never
mixed
happened.
use, and it's not really,
Unless they sell products.
yeah.
It's not producing
I
much.
didn't see much
So
whenever I took.
motion to
photos of it.
table till we can have them come present something to us?
Yeah. sounds
Will
good.
you contact them, Mayor, or do we,
That,
I'll contact them.
you'll contact
Second.
them to ask them to come?
Table.
I'm motioning to table, yeah.
Table item 4.
Morris,
Yay.
Mossaway,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Fairchild,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes,
Schmidt,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
motion passed.
And for what it's worth, I'd like Saban to at least weigh in on it, because I didn't negotiate this. This was Saban that did this, and it's part of the TIF. And so it's about the money we're receiving from the tax incremental financing, the increased property values, that is the trigger for the,
Right, he had talked about maybe putting some fountains in and
Right.
putting
Yeah,
in
he-
some, little
Make some
flower
improvements
put,
up on
yeah.
the front side.
and that was part of what was contemplated, but before I try and read this
Right.
here, Jeff's the one who wrote it, so I would like Jeff to weigh in on whether or not we
Right.
owe the money.
Did we all vote?
Yes.
So we already did.
Okay, update by,
Oh, I was waiting for her to say, okay, so I'm gonna make this real fast because it's 9:15 already. So I gave you what I attempted to do a brochure, and it's on here in color. I printed it here, so it wasn't in color. This is basically the same thing we had, the past, and I just want you to take it home, read it, and write your little notes in it, and then next month we could talk about if you want to change it or improve it or whatever you want to do to it. I basically left the beginning, it's just like there's a bunch of pamphlets by the microphone over there. It's basically the same thing, except I took out the middle part where the brochure talked about a 5-step plan of what we're going to do to revitalize the Warr Acres, which did not really materialize, so I just took it out. It had like pictures of Golden Corral, it had old pictures in there, so the only number that I would change is I have to get with the police chief about the number of cars that go through each day through the city, which he's got. And I wanted to make something that we wouldn't have to really change. So instead we have a population of about around 12,000. The last book I looked at, I think, said 10,000. And then the cars would change. But the rest of it, like this was the town center. That's the same thing that's in that booklet. It would just be a booklet that would open like this. And then that's all it would be. And then the back page, First Fidelity said they'd sponsor it. And then it was Judy's idea to then just have a letter from the mayor that we could print off and insert in here. And that way, if
It can
whenever the next mayor comes in, they could write a letter and put it in. And you wouldn't have to be repeating to print this whole thing out every time, so.
Ah, cool, yeah, like a little
So,
insert.
but if there's something you want to see in here that's not in here, then we could add it and we talk about it at the next meeting. But I know everybody wants to go home, so I'm just saying, take that home and look at it. The next thing is businesses. I contacted a bunch of businesses this month again, as well as last month. I will preface this by saying that the main problem I'm having, and Kit probably knows this, I can contact all these businesses, but they're gonna say, we're franchise, and you have to have an investor, and you have to have everything all set up and the land and everything. So I can't just say, like, I'm going to show you the first one I contacted, Swig. Okay, they sell, it's called dirty drinks, whatever, they put stuff in it. The kids like it.
Milk and
Well,
Pepsi.
they want somebody to invest that has $1 million to buy the franchise. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find that. I can contact them and say, we've got locations and we want you here and the city really wants you here. I emailed all of them. Some of them have responded. I'll show you the other ones I talked to. But we need to think about, I know 2 people that I know of that are actually, they build little areas that they, like over there where the card shop is and where the Shimmers is at, that little strip mall. There's people that just buy land and they make these little strip malls and then they move on and it's up to you to fill it. But then you still have to find investors and people that want to own a Swig business. And so that's going to be the main concern because everything is franchised now unless you find a mom and pop store that somebody just wants to open right there. So I also talked to, he's got one right here, this HTO place. They sell all different kinds of teas. They replied back and said someone would contact me, but it's the same thing. They want me to already have the investor and the person that wants to start a franchise. So I necessarily, even though I want businesses here, I'm not going to give up my government job and go work at HTO. So I might if it stays the way it is, but right now I'm fine where I'm at. So Henson's Burgers, there's one in Yukon on like 39th, if you're going toward Yukon down 39th Street. I spoke with the person that runs this. It's an individual. His last name is Henson. When I was vice mayor the last time, so 2 years ago, he was committed to coming to Warr Acres. He just needed the mayor to follow up. I won't say which mayor it was, but there was no follow-up done. So he went and he's doing a building in Seminole. But he said when that project's done in the middle of summer, he will contact me and we can meet with the mayor to discuss opening a location. That's one that's not really a franchise. That's just somebody that he owns like 4 or 5 burger places. I know we don't need another burger place, but I mean, it's something that would come in here.
This week I met with 2 investors. One has an empty lot over on 36 and MacArthur, and the other is right across the street that owns the entire building where Whip Bakery is. And he wants to build another building there and move some of the people that are in there to another building. So there's 2 possibilities of 2 more strip malls being built. And then, prior to this, I had met with Darrell Durr too, talking about turning his empty building into little shops.
Right, and they're wanting somebody like him that is actually owning the land and he'd actually be the investor. And him and Warr are the only ones that really in Warr Acres do that, and he's trying to get out of them too, right? Kind of.
Well, he's selling his houses, not his commercial.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
but.
I mean, that's
but
the
I
only
met
2
with
that I know of that
Him, Farard, and can't remember the other guy's name, but yeah.
I talked to Othello's. It's an Italian restaurant, which we don't really have in Warr Acres at all. There's one in Norman and one in Edmond. So I said you can be in Warr Acres and you're in the middle of the 2. So that's an individual. I have to set up a time when he can meet. He does lots of, like whenever like he just got done doing the run for the bombing, they give the pasta at the end of the races. So, I mean, it's stuff like that. Like, so he was busy with that. He told me to give him some time to recover from that, and then I'll get with him and with the mayor, and we'll see if he's wanting to be interested in something out here. So, Taco Casa, this is something from Pam, and she's not here. Because Pam said her kids love to go to this Taco Casa, and they want to have one here. I sent them an email, but once again, like I said, they sent back saying it's like over $1 million to franchise to get one out here. Texas Roadhouse, they actually replied back to me. I originally had this idea, I had talked with Judy about where the Golden Corral used to be. So there'd be a great location for Texas Roadhouse but now something's going in there. But if that fails, they actually replied back to me. I didn't think they would. They replied back and said someone would be in contact with me sometime this month. So I'll get with the mayor and see if that's something we could pursue. I don't know if they're the same way as a franchise, but they said that they appreciated that we were interested in having that in our city. The last one was Cheddar's. That was another one from Pam. Because, if you ever go, anytime I go to a city, I always look at what businesses they have all around. And like if you go to Yukon and just drive down that strip over there by, it's on 10th Street, there's businesses everywhere. It's just exploded over there. And so a lot of the places, like Cheddar's was one I had saw, but she had actually mentioned it as well. But I mean, that's just what I do. I try to, I just went to Shawnee last week, and Shawnee, I went to St. Gregory's for college in the 80s, and the only thing there was a Brahms. And now you go out there and there's a casino and there's a Walmart and there's this whole giant mall area, which didn't exist in the 80s, and now it's there now. So, I mean, I don't want that here, but I'm saying I would like to see, since I've been on the council, even since I've lived here in 2011, nothing's changed in Warr Acres. Like, it's all basically the same businesses, the same things, and we need something else because it's dying, and that's the only reason why I'm pushing this so much. Otherwise, I would just say, I'm going to move to Oklahoma City. But I'm still trying, and if you guys think of other places, then you let us know, and then I'll just try to pursue it, because I believe this is better than paying an economic developer $40,000 a year that doesn't do he's not vested in the city, he doesn't care, and he's only looking to get money from other businesses to say, don't go to Warr Acres, go to Oklahoma City, I got a spot here. Because that's what's been happening the past 10 years. So I don't mind doing it. I'm doing it for the city. But like I said, if you guys think of other places, then you let me know, or you contact them. You could contact them and just, I've been using the Google Mail and just, saying I'm on the city council. Yeah, like that place that's right.
That's like the first one I've heard of a breakfast place in Warr Acres.
Oh, there's, it used to be Moe's, now it's.
Nina's.
No, it's
Big-
Nina's,
Big
yeah.
Biscuit.
And
But that's not in Warr
Neighborhood
Acres.
Cafe.
Yeah, there's a couple
Neighbors,
breakfast places,
whatever.
yeah. The Neighbors down on 36th in MacArthur.
Thanks for all your hard work, Mike, and
But
your
yeah.
passion.
But like I said, I'm just doing it to see, like I said, let me know if there's other things. I know everybody wants to go home, so.
I wish Mark was still here, because he met with me with that one investor,
Oh,
and, yeah, so,
Burger place?
Motion to adjourn?
sure.
Second it. Yay.
Oh,
Yes.
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 Yeah, okay.
Yes.